Good evening. Welcome to the Burbank City Council meeting of Tuesday, January 30th, 2018. I'd like to invite the Reverend Paul Clairville from Westminster Presbyterian Church, Burbank, to the podium to lead us in tonight's invocation and flag salute. So if everyone will please stand and remain standing for the flag salute.
Let us pray. Good and gracious God, in the busyness of the day, we pause and we breathe and we thank you. We thank you for all that has transpired through the day. We thank you for a moment of silence. We thank you for the blessings that you give us each and every day. And tonight, as we prepare for this mosh pit of legislation, we thank you that we have the opportunity to laugh and to be joyful in all that you do. We pray for these council members. We pray for the employees who sit with us today and lead us through this process called government. We pray that you would watch over them and over their families. Let them make decisions that are full of energy, imagination, intelligence, and love. We pray for our city workers, for all the folks who live in this city, and we just ask your blessing and protection over all of us. Let us care for others. Let us be present for others. Let us be grateful. In your name we pray, and all God's people said, amen. And now I deftly glide from church to state. Would you please pray, put your hand over your heart, repeat after me. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Boy, that started sounding out like the toddler parent's prayer. Give me just a few minutes of quiet, breathe, relax. And now I'd like to call on the clerk for the roll of the council.
Councilmember Frutos.
Good evening, Madam City Clerk.
Good
Happy to be
evening.
here.
Councilmember Springer.
Here.
Councilmember Talamantes. Vice Mayor Gabaletti. Mayor Rogers.
Here.
Noticing the absence of Vice Mayor Gabaletti.
And I want to note that Ms. Gabaletti, the vice mayor, is out on personal time. She will be returning in time for the next council meeting. Tonight's meeting will be adjourned in memory of Milton Chortkoff, a man whose heart knew no limits, and he passed away December 28 at the age of 88 in Burbank. Starting in the cleaning business at age 17 and still running the highly successful Milt and Edie's Dry Cleaners more than 70 years later, Milt was an icon in the cleaning industry. He embodied the spirit of generosity and was known throughout Burbank and Toluca Lake and North Hollywood for supporting the communities, schools, arts, and pets. Living life with no regrets and a sharp sense of humor, Milt left a heartfelt impression on everyone he met with his robust desire to make our world a better and happier place. Milt is survived by his wife Edith and brother Bert Chortkoff, his daughter Beth Shader and husband Michael, and son Ben Chortkoff and wife Susan, and 5 grandsons, Zachary, Charles, Joseph, Drew, and David. The Burbank City Council expresses deepest sympathies to the family and the friends and all who knew Milton Chortkoff. Milt was a true inspiration, and he leaves a legacy of passionate service to the community. As a council, we all send our condolences. I'd like to invite the family members up to the podium to say a few words. I stay. Okay.
Good evening.
There you go. And straight into the mic if possible.
Sure.
Although
Thank you.
you're too big for our mic.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much for allowing me to share just a couple of words. When Milt and I first started the cleaners 30 some odd years ago, we had made a commitment to the city of Burbank. We all this time had continued our feeling that Burbank was our home, and Milt always took great pride in everything that he do. He lived life without regrets, and so doing whatever Burbank was up to, we were involved, as well as all the schools and the community efforts and so forth. It was our pleasure to be here, and I know Milt, standing right next to me right now, would sincerely appreciate all the nice things that you all had just shared about him. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I thank you for coming down this evening. Next, council presentation for the Master Recycler Recognition. Am I up here or down there for this? Down here. Okay, I'm being joined by our recycling specialist, Miss Amy Hamas.
Very close.
Hamas.
You did pretty good.
From the Burbank Recycle Center to join me at the podium to recognize the Burbank Master Recycler graduates. Now, first, can you tell us a little bit about this program?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And you need to hold that closer than I was.
Okay. Everybody can hear me? Okay. This one? You want me to take that?
Is this a replacement mic or?
Just so we can banter.
Well, there's about 30 people here who don't have mics.
All right. Tonight we are honoring the graduates of the Burbank Recycle Center's third Master Recycling Training. Through classwork, field trips, and hands-on experience, the residents who completed the program gained valuable insights in not only recycling, but reducing their waste footprint through reuse, repair, salvage, product stewardship, composting, better consumer awareness, and much more. Some of our master recyclers were inspired to create their own projects, whilst others contributed to existing programs within their workplace, school districts, and local nonprofits. All of the master recyclers are exploring ways to save resources and share information with the community as part of their continued journey. We call that investment in them a multiplier effect that will pay off dividends for decades to come. These engaged volunteers, or waste warriors as they are affectionately called, have donated hundreds of hours to groups as well as their own special projects. A few to note of the representatives that are here tonight. For instance, introducing a trash talk program during a clothing swap for senior citizens. Creating a photo art installation that brought attention to not only recycling but marine pollution. And even building a unique little free library made entirely from salvage materials. Master recyclers were also pivotal in helping the Recycle Center with special projects as well, like providing graphic design services for an upcoming food waste guide for local Burbank restaurants, helping with the first ever Fix-It clinic back in December, and consulting on Burbank School District's recent Share Table launch. Thank you all for setting a positive example and generously giving your time. You are helping to make Burbank a regenerative and more environmentally responsible community. And by the way, the 2018 Master Recycler Program, which would be our fourth class, began this month and goes through April, creating more committed waste warriors, giving back to their community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank all of you for your work. We have a recognition certificate for each of you. When your name is called, if you'd please step forward and then hover about the area, because we're going to take a group photo when everyone's up here, okay? You're going to handle those? Good. First is Lisa Beavis. And forgive me. Next is Melissa Burton. Now, these ladies have never been dirty or trashy a day in their lives. So how did you do this staying so clean?
They clean up real nice.
Oh, okay. Okay. Stephanie Gerard. Another one, spotless. Yeah, but they're doing better than me here. You are my cleaner. Let's see. Okay, Karen Lau. There you go. Jonna Madigan. Thank you very much. Now this one, I'm sorry, this one prompts me. I have to ask, and I'm sure he's tired of it. This is for James McCorney. Any relation? Yeah? Oh, my kids adored Mrs. McCorney, but anyway, because they went to Luther. Yeah, okay. There you are. Has nothing to do with the connection to teachers. Mine are, well, almost well out. So there you are. Thank you. Congratulations. And Yolanda Wu. There you are. Congratulations. If we can now get a group shot with everyone.
And if we could invite our friends at Public Works, Craig Hampel. Good. And John Molyneux, you want to come up?
Is always welcome.
And Marnell, would you like to come up as well? Yeah.
I saw a wolf in the woods. All right. Now it's time for the city manager report. Does the city manager have a report this evening?
No, sir.
No, sir. Reporting on closed session, Madam City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, council did meet in closed session this evening to discuss existing litigation under Government Code Section 54-956.9, subsection D1, in the matter of Spencer versus City of Burbank, which was a challenge to the city's electric rates under Prop 26. Thank you.
Thank you. Now's our general public comment period. Persons speaking during public comment may address the council on any matter concerning city business, or may choose to use the first period of public comment to address an agendized report, but they will not be able to speak again on that item following this segment. Please present a completed yellow general public comment card to the city clerk. If you wish to speak, please do not delay in submitting your card. And our first speaker is Kevin Haroop. All right, just Emily calls him that all the time.
You just love doing that, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do, Mr. Harrop. Go right ahead.
Okay, all right. You can't actually pronounce it. Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm the chair currently of the Traffic Commission, and some little time ago you asked the commissions and the boards to give you their goals, and we've been a little late in getting around to it, but that's because we struggled so much with making it brief, which I think you'll appreciate. Here I have copies.
That was a shot to me, wasn't it? That was a shot to me.
No.
It's about being brief. No.
And I just wanted to introduce Vanessa Rochelle, my vice chair.
Hi,
Hello.
nice to meet you.
And you.
Anyway, our goals to execute upon any charter set forth by the council. So you tell us to do something, we're going to do it. Strive to provide expertise regarding traffic-related matters, which we've got a fair history in the question, so we're doing okay. Partner with council on traffic decisions with a certain emphasis on partner. We're looking for more to do. We'd like just a little bit more to do. There's a list of the functions as we understand them, and I'll run through them very quickly. To provide the public a forum, a first chance to bring it to the city, and possibly save them a trip to council and save you the work of answering them. We'll answer them for you if we can. Review staff's procedures and objectives and offer remedies to traffic problems, propose traffic policies or alternative ways of conducting traffic department's business to council. We'll bring you a report if we see something we want you to know. We'll be adjudicating, we are actually charged by you to adjudicate certain matters such as taxi cab permits, on-street parking restrictions, livery services, private services, and future transportation services. And to evaluate and review staff recommendations to advise council and staff on fiscally and environmentally responsible traffic solutions. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and nice meeting you again. I have no other cards yet. Is there one to... Now, you heard me start out saying, please get your cards up there immediately. So let's not be playing these games. Let me see this card so I can find out this guy's name. Put it in his permanent record. Constantine Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, Council. I went to the County Board of Supervisors today. They had their weekly meeting, and at the end of their meeting, they saved one agenda item for a large, robust discussion. For them, it was agenda item 8. It was specifically to change the wording on the current state law on what we consider to be someone who is gravely disabled. They wanted to include people who are refusing medical treatment that could possibly could lead to them getting sicker or further injured or possibly even dying. I went down there to oppose this legislation for a number of reasons, not the least of which being the 4th and 8th Amendment. The wording allows individuals who are minding their own business on the street who simply don't want to be treated to be put under a 72-hour psychiatric hold for no other reason than not wanting to partake of whatever is being offered to them. With all the work that we're doing here in our city, with all the work that other neighborhoods are doing that we know Glendale, North Hollywood, all over LA County is doing, I went down there with a number of people and we tried to encourage them not to pass this legislation. It passed 4-1, including our own Supervisor Barger. And I would hope that council would take the time to look at this legislation. We could send it through our attorney and see if we can, at least at the minimum, write a strongly worded letter saying we oppose this legislation. I would encourage all of you to look at it, look at the wording, and look at the ramifications that it would lead to. Offering people services, going to where the homeless are, in our parks, on our streets, and giving them ample opportunity is great, and I love it. But that is one step further that we don't need to go, where we say, you know what, now we're going to force it on you. We have to draw the line somewhere, and I don't like where this legislation is going. Other than that, I have a great time here at this city council. I love this room. I've had agreements and disagreements with every single one of these faces here, and we always come away from it with a great attitude. And I did not get that feeling today at Board of Supervisors. So I'm grateful for what's going on in here. Thank you.
Yeah, I've seen that public comment set up by both the city of LA and the county. And people are conducting meetings while you're talking or trying to talk for your minute. It's awful. Excuse me, the next speaker is Juan Guillen.
Good evening. It's been a while. It's been a little hard to stomach these meetings, even on Granicus. First off, I want to thank the airport authority for coming in last week and sticking around to listen to the residents' points of views and responding. Oh, that's right, they didn't. As soon as they spoke their piece, they scurried away like rats, never responding and never being on record to the residents' concerns. And no one said or asked, no one on the dais asked if they could stay and answer some of the concerns of the residents, or why not stay and listen. They never do that. Second issue that really irked the bejesus out of me is a 10.5-minute rant to public response last week. Trust me, it's 10.5. I clocked it. From 3:18 to 3:29, we have council members going after residents. One of the council members said, the abuse of truth, taking two items that aren't comparable and making comparisons. That council member made a living of doing the same thing. And then he went after this resident and accused him of saying a council member should resign because of their illness. And I thought that was a little hypocritical, since that same council member went after Ted McConkey when he was sick and even after he passed away, not to mention Susan Spanos. The hypocrisy is not amusing. This is not Flappers East. This isn't open mic night, and this isn't funny. This is a joke.
Excuse me, and we have one last card, Mike Nolan. Mike, do you want a mic, or are you good? Do you want another mic, or are you good? I hear you.
There we go, almost. Thank you. Mike Nolan. I have a problem with the way things have been going in this city recently, and I've been asked by some cancer survivors, and I'm one of them, that we acknowledge that most people that are diagnosed with cancer don't ever claim they beat it, because their cancer may be in remission. And unfortunately, that's the reality. And Mayor, you have indicated that you beat it 4 times. And the doctors had, anyway, it just gets confusing to people. In fact, people that have cancer have a fight on their hands. And that's reality. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up, and I really resent this, Will Rogers, that you went after David Spell at the last meeting. It's inappropriate, and I want to remind you of a few things. Nobody in this city elected you as mayor other than the 4 colleagues you have on the city council. Nobody ever voted for you as mayor. They voted for you as a member of the city council. That means you're 1 of 5. And if you want to go after a citizen because of something you read on a blog, I wish you'd take another thought, because it's inappropriate when a citizen takes the time and trouble to come down here. I've been coming down since 1961, longer than anybody in this room. We have to listen to people like Bill Riddell, Dave Golonsky, now living down in Orange County with his junior prom date. Why would you pick on somebody that took the time and trouble to come down here and give their opinion? You don't have to agree with it, but you went after Mr. Spell, and it was inappropriate, in my opinion, and many other people. Your job is to preside over the meeting. If you want to give an opinion, we want to hear your opinion. You're an elected official of the city, but attacking citizens is wrong. And the rest of the council members should take you to task when you do it. We have a prerogative, and this city has a great history, going back long before Ralph Brown ever came along, of allowing people who live here, own property here, or have a business here, addressing the city council. This goes way, way back. The fact that you've changed it now to 3 minutes doesn't allow you the opportunity to attack. It's beneath your dignity, whatever it is.
Okay, thank you. That's all your time. Seeing no other cards, I'm going to move on to the consent calendar.
How about response to oral communication?
I apologize. How about response to oral communications? Anyone have anything? Oh, yeah, that's raising your hand. Oh boy, we finally got this sorted out. Yes, Bob, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank everybody that came in this evening. Mr. Constantine, thank you. I don't know if you know, but I'll be glad to follow up. But we've got a community meeting scheduled, and Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, for May the 31st. Thank you, Erica. In our community service building at 2 p.m. with our supervisor. So please come by and let your voice be heard. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sharon.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and Mr. Harrop and Ms. Rochelle, thank you very much for your service on the Traffic Commission. And Mr. Anthony, thank you very much. I know we had a discussion about this at the Advisory Council on Disabilities meeting. And so I appreciate everybody's comments, and I will take them all into consideration. Thank you very much.
Mr. Talamantes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also like to thank everyone for coming down and sharing your concerns with us. Mr. Anthony, you know, the action that I believe the supervisors took is because of the latest flu epidemic that's going around. And I know you're looking at it from the standpoint of giving up rights or taking rights away from people that are not doing well. But I think it's for the better good of the larger. It's a bigger picture that we have. We can't have somebody just laying around with a sickness infecting other potential people around them when they can be taken care of by some medical attention. I just see it as a thing that's good for the greater good. That's the way I look at it. Traffic Commission, Chair and Vice Chair, thank you for coming tonight and giving us your goals. And I know you've stated the fact that you want more to do. And I'll be looking into it. I know my colleagues will as well, and see how we can do that. Thank you for coming down and speaking on Milton Eddy's behalf. Pleasure. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I'll add, for the Traffic Commission, you're looking something to do. Why don't we put them on the 5 project and just have them finish that? It's, well, okay, maybe that's not possible, but I'd be glad to give you a good big job like that. Besides, I know Kevin would like to play with a tractor. I will leave it at that and move on now to the consent calendar, unless there's any final comments. Items 1 and 2 can be enacted in one motion. And the city clerk's going to read our consent agenda item titles for us.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 1, resolution approving contract documents and awarding a construction contract for resurfacing of local residential streets in the Empire Center, Rancho, and Rancho adjacent neighborhoods, and approving the related striping plan. Item number 2, approve construction plans and approve a cooperative agreement between the City of Burbank and the City of Glendale for the Riverside Drive and Chavez Street improvements. And that conclude the 2 items.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Move the consent.
Second? Second. So to the city clerk.
Councilmember Talamantes?
Yes.
Councilmember Frutos?
Yes.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes.
Mayor Rogers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did I just miss a public comment period here? There's, no. It's out of order. Okay. Reports to the council. We're now moving on to building and planning workloads status report from the N. Oh. Okay, so there is, but there is a public comment period here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, all right. We'll now have a public comment period for item number 3, engineering services agreement with KOA. But
first, we're going to call the item and have the staff report, and then we'll do public comment.
okay, let's do it in that order. Yeah. Hello. I hope your office runs better than this little square the dais has the last 5 minutes.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Rogers, members of City Council. My name is Hannah Wu. I'm here with the Community Development Department. I'm an Associate Planner for the Transportation Division, and I'm here tonight to give an overview of the Safe Routes to School project.
If you could lean in a little more, thank you.
Also for your consideration tonight is an approval for an engineering services agreement with KOA Corporation. So I'll give a little bit of background about the project before we get to that item. So this is Safe Routes to School is a city grant-funded project. Safe Routes to School is a national movement to create more livable and sustainable communities. It will provide infrastructure improvements for traffic calming, as well as educational programs to encourage traffic safety for parents, students, and community members. These benefits can be felt for schools as well as the greater community. There are many goals and benefits of the Safe Routes to School project. This includes the overarching goal of the Safe Routes to School project is to provide and improve student safety, and with that, encourage more bicycling and walking for students. With an increase in bicycling and walking for students, we'll see health improvements as well as improvements in air quality with reduction in vehicle emissions immediately adjacent to school sites. This will also have greater benefits for the community as well as residents in the area. We experience fewer children walking and bicycling to school today, and Safe Routes to School hopes to encourage more biking and walking. As I mentioned, Safe Routes to School also provides community benefits for adults and residents. So how is this project funded? This project is funded through state funds through Caltrans. Staff applied for a grant, and this project will be covered under 90% grant funds as well as a 10% local match in development impact fees, so it will have no general fund implications. Where will these improvements be implemented? The project corridor is focused along Kenneth and Winona, and with 3 schools in the project area are George Washington Elementary, Thomas Jefferson Elementary, as well as John Muir Middle. The project budget is split amongst these 3 schools. So as you can see, the $490,000 budget is a little bit short for these 3 schools, but we really see this as a first step in improving student safety, and then staff hopes to build upon the efforts in partnership with BUSD and hopefully go after more funding in the future if it becomes available. This is a brief look at the project location map. You can see the project corridor in red along Kenneth and Winona, and then the 3 project area schools are highlighted in blue. As staff, we've heard many issues and problems voiced from parents, BUSD, as well as residents in the area. This ranges from cars speeding, cars rolling through stop signs, making illegal or dangerous U-turns, children just not feeling safe walking or biking to school, as well as traffic circulation near schools, particularly the pickup and drop-off areas around the schools are dangerous and congested. Although this project will not directly solve the pickup and drop-off issues, it's a policy that BUSD could look at, as well as with help and assistance from the city. So Safe Routes to School hopes to increase pedestrian safety, and Safe Routes to School takes a 6 E's approach. So evaluation, engineering, education, encouragement, enforcement, and equity. So just a couple examples of those that the KOA Corporation ESA before you tonight. It will cover many of these 6 E's approach that Safe Routes to School really emphasizes. Evaluations such as data collection, surveys, getting a really baseline of existing conditions that are currently out there at the 3 schools. Engineering, such as the infrastructure that's currently proposed with high visibility crosswalks, possible bulb outs, and increased signage. Education will be completed through safety workshops for students, parents, as well as residents. Encouragement activities, such as walk and bike to school day, which I'll get more into later on in this presentation. And enforcement, as I mentioned before, in partnership with BUSD, we hope that drop-off areas could be looked at. Another example of enforcement could be having like student safety patrols and ideas like that. Equity is really emphasizing for all ages and abilities and all backgrounds that this safety improvements would be geared towards. So some safety toolbox of options. I won't go through all these tonight, but on the left-hand side, you'll see the existing issues and concerns that we as staff have heard. And then on the right are possible safety tools that this project could implement. There are a variety of improvements that we hope to study with the help of the consultant KOA. So just a graphical representation of some of these toolbox items. You can see here high visibility crosswalks, which we have many of throughout the city, bulb outs and curb extensions, school crossing signs. Superintendent Matt Hill was very supportive of this when we met with him last summer because he really liked the bright visibility of this fixed into the roadway. Bicycle lanes and sharrows. Walking route maps that can be customized for each school that can be used for students and parents. Safety education can be comprised of walking safety tips and fun activities for students. Walk to School Day. So in October of last year, city staff, 30 city staff members, including PD officers, helped participate with the help of BUSD administration to support Walk to School Day activities for the 3 schools in the project area. We also worked with PIO to have press releases, social media, printed banners. When we presented to the BUSD board late last year, they were very supportive of Walk to School Day and even came up with the idea of Walk to School Wednesdays that they are thinking of implementing. So thus far, for the project, we have last summer met with BUSD administration as well as all 3 school principals, conducted preliminary school observations, and met with all 3 PTA groups and did outreach to them, participated in Walk to School Day, and then presented at the BUSD board meeting. So should council wish to proceed with this program, staff proposes to continue communicating with the PTA groups, hold a town hall meeting, and work with the consultant to gather data, as well as develop concept level alternatives for further study and design. And with that, our staff recommendation is to approve the engineering services agreement with KOA Corporation to provide Safe Routes to School outreach, education, and engineering services. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions or comments? Mr. Telemann.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. I just have a couple of questions. One of them is back to the page 3, where it says, how is this project funded? And you mentioned Caltrans. We have a state grant from Caltrans?
Yes.
But that only covers 90%?
90% would be covered by state funds through the state Safe Routes to School program. And then the remainder of the 10% is a local city match to that grant, and that would be provided by development impact fees. So no general fund impact.
And the total budget is $490,000?
Yes. So $487,500 to be exact.
So the thing that was missing, information that was missing here was a 10% local match, or local
Okay.
contribution, right?
Yes. The 10% would be 48,800. So the 490,000 is inclusive of the grant as well as the match.
You know, one of the things that I've been, since I've been on council, I've been really encouraging staff and our city manager to look at the different school sites and just go ahead and put stop signs at every corner. If the school site is located where you can have 4 corners to a school site, just put four stop signs at every corner, just to greater safety for the kids, the families, the cars that are double parking, which I know we're not supposed to, but it's being done. And I've been encouraging for greater visibility of the crosswalks, like staff has been doing over the last couple of years. I've been on this for the last 5 years at least, encouraging staff. And I know, where are we getting the money from? But you know, where there's a will, there's a way. When something is focused on, it gets done. I've seen it even before I came on council. Things get done if somebody is willing to do it. So thank you very much for bringing this to our attention, and the fact that you're creating greater safety sites at all the school sites. That's what it's all about, in my mind. So I like what the work that's being done. I like that the graphic with the Beatles walking across. So back in the 60s, that was being done already with a cross, with a highlighted crossing, page 6.
In the UK.
In the UK, right.
We took a while to
Yeah, we took a while before
come
that.
around.
Anyway, I like the progress. Thank you very much. This will only help a small area of the city, because we're only focusing on 3 schools, and it happens to be an elementary, middle school. Well, I guess it's 2 elementaries, Jefferson and Washington and John Muir Middle School. What would it take to do the entire city? More money?
That would involve future funding, grant applications, hopefully, that will open up in the future. If they do, then staff will pursue funding for those.
Okay, I encourage staff to keep looking. I know it's a lot of work, and sometimes that's a drawback to keep looking for a grant, because there's a lot of work involved. But if it means that we're gonna get money in the city of Burbank, I would rather get it in Burbank than to give it to Glendale, because they're willing to put more effort into a grant. And I realize it takes a lot of work, energy, and time commitment to apply for a grant that you might not get. But if you don't ever apply, you'll never get it. So thank you very much for your report.
Mr. Frutos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your report. My only questions are, did we and I'm looking at page number 1 as far as community enhancements that benefit everybody, and specifically around George Washington Elementary School, that whole cluster at Winona, Buena Vista. Was there any thoughts of trying to bring traffic calming measures to that area? Just because I do see a lot of kids that do walk to the Boys and Girls Club. Any thoughts? Not second guessing you, but I'm just asking for staff. Is there any thoughts about that area?
So Washington Elementary is a school that will be included in this study area, in this project area. So with the assessment and data collection efforts, we will see what improvements and treatments can be made to help with traffic calming.
Outstanding. And then my last and final question is, I was watching a report out of one of our high schools, and they're running out of space for bike racks and skateboard racks. Does this grant also support putting bicycle racks, skateboard racks at these elementary schools to really encourage, biking to school? Kids like to ride their is there?
Yes, so through this grant, that is an eligible expense. We currently do not have that in the scope of services that is before you tonight. but it's something that we could look at if we do have funding for that.
And did this question come up out of curiosity with the superintendent?
Yes.
It did.
There is interest.
Okay,
for increased,
great report.
bicycle parking.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I would note, I think we probably both watched the same show on the Burbank Channel. Yes. And I think, I could be remembering wrong, but what I got out of it was that because of some alterations they'd made to how people and traffic moved in front of the building, they were able to create room for all these new bike racks and skateboard racks, because those weren't there 3 months ago, the ones that they showed kids locking up to and such. So well, we might have a different interpretation of what we heard there. Not that they're looking for more, but that they got a lot more.
Right, and we're both on the same topic on this one here, because in that same program, I followed up with the discussion with our city manager talking about Burbank High School. And their needs have increased, where more of the high school students now are actually physically riding their bicycles to school versus when we were in high school, we had a car, we drove, you know, so it has changed, and hopefully we can meet these needs to secure this infrastructure for the students.
You drove to school?
Well, my friends did. I hitched the ride wherever I could.
That's enough. No more wuss can talk.
Okay, thank you.
I'll call on Ms. Springer.
Thank you for your report. And my questions or comments are related to Councilmember Frutos, is about, because I look at the map and just being around George Washington Elementary School, it just looks like it seems to have bigger and more special challenges than Thomas Jefferson and John Muir, just because of its location, you know, near the freeway in Buena Vista. And so did you say the money will be split equally 3 ways?
The money is for the project area encompassing all 3 schools. With the analysis and the data collection, with the alternatives that city staff will work with the consultant on, it might not necessarily be split evenly, but we will see what the analysis shows to see where the greatest needs are.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your analysis, will you also be looking at the police department data as far as, you know, how many accidents, what was the cause of the accident, how many citations were issued, all that into the mix to formalize the formula of where the monies will be deviated? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
Do you have any preliminary thoughts that you've kind of found?
With the data collection effort, as part of this engineering services agreement, we will be looking at collision data for all 3 schools. As far as initial thoughts go, as part of the grant application process, when staff initially applied, we did see more collisions geared towards near Washington Elementary, just because of the congestion in that area.
That's actually a pretty difficult street to work on, just because you're the expert, I'm just layman, but that's a very difficult street to really kind of improve it. So I'll be very happily surprised.
So heavily parked.
Yeah.
And yeah, how do you get to it? What do you do with whatever you can get to? And
so I'll definitely be watching, but on a good way, to see exactly how talented, you know, staff comes up with the proper traffic calming measures. So I'm glad you guys are at least tackling that area. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Talamantes.
You know, and that is, obviously it's already been brought up, but just looking at it, being familiar with the area, there's not too many things you can do to it. I mean, unless you want to start buying properties in the area, I don't think we have enough money to start buying properties. I wouldn't think so. Because you've got just a couple of streets there. You've got the big diamond in the middle, across the street from the school and the freeway. You know, and it's just a busy intersection to begin with.
Yes, there's definitely constraints in the area, and obviously the funding is a little bit limited.
Yeah.
But staff sees this as a first step and hopes to be creative with this.
There's challenges there, and hopefully down the road we can get enough funding I know Caltrans already helped and Metro helped during the construction there at Buena Vista and San Fernando with the funding to get the kids from Washington over to the Boys and Girls Club. They provided some buses to be able to transport the kids over there in a safe manner. But when it comes to whatever we can do in that area, I'm all for it. Now, how was the school district receptive, other than being for it?
Yes, school district.
How much forward were they?
School district, administration, principals, as well as the BUSD board, they've all been very supportive of the project and enthusiastic to see it move forward.
Are they willing? Were they one of the participants in our grant? Were they named as a participant?
They did provide a letter of support when the grant application was initially submitted.
They supported the, okay. I'd like to see a little bit more of a support from them. This is a safety thing for our kids. It's not just the city's kids, it's the school district kids as well. It's their work sites. It's, you know, where the kids go to school. So I would like to have a little bit of more of support than just a letter. If they really feel that this is something that we should go forward with in the future with other school sites, I'd like to have them a little bit more of a buy-in. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a little bit along what Councilmember Talamantes was saying. Just for information, this is an old grant. It is not new. Previous administration, in fairness to the current administration, was not that interested. The current administration has been nothing but supportive. Matt and the board, absolutely supportive. I mean, enthusiastically supportive. So I think had it been current board and administration, they would have done as you suggest, you hope they would have done. In fact, you may recall at your joint meeting with the school board, I think it was Shar Tabbert that said, what about school zones? So one of the things we talked with Superintendent Hill about was using this project to perhaps establish what, again, Mr. Talamantes, I think, was referring to, which is let's slow them down around the schools. Good way to do it, we don't have any in Burbank, is school zones, right? That Winona is a cut-through street, and if you stand out there at school hours, the cars just blow by, and the parents are fearful of their children walking to school. It's way too fast. If we could establish that as a school zone and slow those cars down to 15 or something like that, it would make a big difference in terms of safety, is just slow the traffic down around our schools. So we're looking very much at that as an element. It's a political element, it's a challenging design element, but it's not a lot of cost. It's probably a good thing for us as a city to consider. Perhaps schools shouldn't be where we drive fast, you know? And so just maybe we could do a really good thing here without a lot of money, just a lot of will working together and with PD and others, right? So school zones is a takeaway from your joint meeting you asked for, and it would do a lot like your stop signs. But the stop signs around the school itself, like think Washington, right? On one corner it'd make a big difference. But what really probably helped that school is the Winona traffic, that cut-through traffic from Buena Vista to Glen Oaks. It kind of goes pretty fast. I don't know the right words to use, but it's fast. If you made that a school zone and did a bit of enforcement, you'd tune up a few drivers and maybe we could make it safer. Just a thought. But so there's some elements in the school district. I want to assure you the principals, the district superintendent have been more than enthusiastic.
Thank you. And that's it for council questions. I am not seeing any speaker cards. Do we have any for this? Okay. So we will move on to disposition of this item. Yes, sir.
I move to approve an engineering services agreement with KOA Corporation in the amount of $126,536.29 to provide safe routes to school outreach, education, and engineering services to prepare plans, specifications, and estimates for safe routes to school cycle 10, Kenneth to Winona project.
Second.
And you have a second, Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Talamantes?
Yes.
Councilmember Frutos?
Yes.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes.
Mayor Rogers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're going to building and planning workload status report from the Community Development Department. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Rogers, members of the City Council, Patrick Prescott, Community Development. The purpose of tonight's report is to provide the Council with an update on the current workload of the Community Development Department's building and planning divisions, and assess increased demands for service, staffing capacity to meet those demands, and potential issues to be considered in the future in order to not compromise project delivery and maintain the high level of city services that the community has come to expect. I'm certain at least a couple of my colleagues in other departments could provide you a similar report on their operations and staffing. I'd like to start with an organization chart of the Community Development Department for your information. There are 4 divisions, not including the administration portion of the department: Building Division, Planning Division, Business and Economic Development, and the Transportation Division. Tonight, we're only going to discuss building and planning services. Over the past year, the city has experienced an increased level of land development proposals, and these proposals have affected our ability to maintain levels of service, as well as our long-range planning projects. First, I want you to see the organizational structure for the Building Division and the tasks that they perform. Building Division includes plan check, building permit issuance, building inspections, code enforcement, business license, and business tax. Within this division, there are 6 permit techs, 7 building code inspectors, and 5 plan check engineers, and 7 code enforcement inspectors. That's shown here under each of those tasks.
Excuse me, Patrick. May I trouble you to please repeat those numbers so I can put them in my notes?
Sure, they're on slide 5.
Okay, disregard it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. And within planning, the planning division does current planning, advanced planning, sometimes called long-range planning, as well as municipal code, city code updates. Examples of those are listed here under current planning: single-family development permits, conditional use permits, as well as large projects that include plan developments and development agreements, PDDA. Long-range planning includes updates to specific plans or new specific plans, such as the proposed Golden State specific plan, and a potential update to the downtown Burbank Center plan. And then some of those city code updates you're familiar with, that sometimes they pop up at our urging, and sometimes they're state directed, such as with ADUs, accessory dwelling units, or even the cannabis regulations. This division consists of 10 planners, including the assistant director. So in fact, doing the day-to-day work is you have 9 planners. And here's that org chart. Those 9 planners share the responsibility for current planning, advanced planning, and code updates with the assistance of 2 administrative support staff. I want to hit some of the essential duties of the planning division first and describe our work capacity, organizational capacity to do that work, and then explain the actual work the actual workload now in reality. So operational capacity allows us to respond to public inquiries both in phone and email, about 25,000 of those per year. That's our capacity. And walk-ins, these are people who come to the community services building across the street. Our organizational capacity is about 7,500 of those. Current year demand is 35,391, and walk-ins are up to 10,615. And just so you can get an indication of what that means, that operational capacity equals about 30 walk-ins per day. So if you multiply those 30 walk-ins by 15 minutes, and frankly, many of them take longer than that, but already you're at 7.5 hours of counter work, and the counter is open 7 hours, which means we bring planners downstairs and take them away from the processing of applications. So this is just a graph to show you the trend line we've seen, just to illustrate that actual workload number a little differently. All signs point to this continuing to rise. My staff is estimating by about 20% next fiscal year. Other planning services that the planners conduct besides the counter and phone calls and email are the current planning projects. These are, again, are the projects that might be familiar to you, like First Street Village or the IKEA redevelopment. Our operational capacity per year is about 5 of these major projects, and then some of those municipal code updates, the same 5, and then administrative and discretionary permits, 270. And those administrative and discretionary permits include hillside development permits, conditional use permits, accessory dwelling units, etc. And the actual workload there is significantly greater. So we're at 22 for development projects in various stages of review. And then our advanced planning and code updates, we're at 23. And this is, some of this stuff is on our on the task list, things that come out of council meetings, and things that originate sometimes with requests from residents. The noise ordinance, for instance, is one of these things that adds to this list of 23. And then the administrative and discretionary permits is about double of what our current capacity of 9 planners can effectively accomplish. What this workload for planning means is that we should be anticipating extended processing times for these projects. Some up to 12 months for the larger projects. And if you look at administrative and discretionary, we're looking at 2 to 4 months longer. So what this means is that it takes more time and things get pushed out. Just quickly now to the building division. The building division fields about has the capacity to field about 91,000 phone calls, emails, and public records requests. We get a significant number of public records requests citywide, but also particularly in CDD, I think. Here is our current demand for those services. Pretty significantly higher in most of those, total of 114,000 public inquiries. And then operational capacity for the public counter, which means plan check at the counter and permit issuance, as well as building inspections, are about 14,000 and 18,000. And we're up to 18,000 at the counter and about just over 25,000 building inspections. What the building inspections amount to, just for some context, is the industry standard for building inspection is about 10 inspections per day. That would be the high end. That's to ensure efficiency and that all of the life safety things are being adequately assessed. And our inspectors average, so some higher, some lower, I guess, about 14 per day. And here again is a graph just showing one of these building services at the counter. And again, we're anticipating this to continue to rise. The planning and building workloads are connected, right? There's some things building issues permits for that planning doesn't review, like electrical permits, but generally they're often tied together. So for plan check in the building division, these numbers indicate what our operational capacity is for our plan checkers. 56 accessory dwelling units, and you may recall I said there have been over 100 submitted to planning, so they just haven't gotten to building process yet. And also, even something as seemingly simple as an accessory dwelling unit can take 15 hours of plan check work, and larger projects can take 2 weeks. So this is our operational capacity here, and this is the current demand so far. A lot of the demand we're seeing is not from the major projects, it's from single-family homes, particularly the more intense single-family development permits we require now, and things like ADUs and commercial tenant improvements for small businesses. That's what's driving a significant chunk of the demand for services. So we're trying to manage the workload as best we can and limit how much of our level of service we have to sacrifice. So what we've done So far, or continue to do, is a continued use of outside consultants in order to process some of these discretionary projects. There's a planning, survey, and design account sometimes we use for this, but that fund is pretty near exhausted before the end of the fiscal year. And some applicants have asked to pay to hire consultants to ensure processing timelines. The planning division has established with our colleagues in other departments an interdepartmental review committee where prior to meeting with applicants on their projects to discuss potential conditions of approval, all the departments will sit around the table to hash out comments and draft conditions of approval collectively, and this tends to save at least a couple weeks of processing time. We're trying to update our department web pages and handouts so we can provide as much information as possible and not require people to come to our building. Targeted key staff and recruitment and retention. We're pretty close to fully staffed, one position which will be filled shortly in planning. One of the things that building is doing that's interesting is establish plan review thresholds criteria for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing plan checks. It determines what level of project scope will need a formal plan review for the specialty disciplines, which means it may be simple enough that it can be handled quickly in-house and not sent out to outside consultant for mechanical and electrical review. And that saves a considerable amount of time. One of the things we're going to be bringing back to is a report on the Burbank property portal. It's a web portal. It's an online property search tool that can be used by prospective applicants and residents to check permit history on their projects. That is live now. And we are going to begin advertising that and, again, bring a report to you. And another thing we're very excited about is reviewing, I was going to say review the feasibility. I'm certain it's feasible. It's how quickly we can make it happen. The online payments, permitting, and inspection requests is something that we're very eager to get going. Again, that reduces the necessity of people having to drive and visit our building. We'll also be evaluating other possible opportunities to use technology to improve processing times and allow us to maintain high levels of customer service. And we expect to use existing resources for this as much as possible. So potential actions we are considering to manage the workload further. One is to reduce the public counter hours. Community Development Department and Public Works Department maintain counter hours on the first floor of the Community Services Building of 8 a.m. to noon and 1 to 4 Monday through Friday. So the proposal would be close the building and planning division public counters at noon daily, but provide public counter hours Monday through Friday. And the afternoon hours would be limited to appointments. Or alternatively, maintain the 8 to 4 Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday, but close the planning and building and public safety counters on Fridays all day. So Fridays would be used as catch-up days for city planning and building and safety personnel to work on development proposals, plan check reviews, and conduct inspections. No walk-ups, appointments, and phone calls would be accepted on those closed Fridays. Public Works maintains the same public counter hours, so we anticipate these options would necessitate to their hours as well. Another option, and something that's frankly just happening out of necessity, is to extend out plan check and development review processing timelines. So we really need to manage expectations. So we've already begun to inform project applicants of extended project review times. In some instances, projects that would previously have taken 4 to 5 months will now take 7 to 9 months to process. And larger development proposals that require zone changes, general plan amendments, et cetera, which were initially projected to take 16 to 24 months, may take 30 to 36 months to process. The other thing that may need to happen is that we will need to prioritize current planning and development projects over long-term planning. And that means that if we successfully receive a Metro grant to update the Burbank Center Plan, we would have to postpone that until we had the staff to do that. So the workload we believe will continue to increase, as I've indicated in the previous slides, which will result in additional backlog and delay in permits. We do not currently have sufficient in-house resources to meet the demand from the community as it relates to planning, engineering, and inspection requests. The majority of development proposals, as I explained, are those core service. They're not necessarily the large development proposals, or that core service that we do, single family and commercial tenant improvements. In the near future, it will be necessary to consider securing additional consultant services to keep pace with the increased number and complexity of new development proposals. We have that immediate need, as is one of the bullet points explains, to fund consultant service to keep pace with the workload. We will begin requesting applicants to fund some of those consultant services to free time for the planners to process their applications and still maintain efficiency and timeliness with the single family and smaller commercial projects. The report today is just to kind of to let you know, to kind of recalibrate or manage expectations of the community. This is as much about not wanting to disappoint you, the council, as well as the community. And we wanted you to be aware of the magnitude of the work. There's a willingness on the part of my staff to give their best professional effort. They're not giving up. But there is only so many hours you can expect someone to stay, or so many days you can expect them to stay till 8 or 10 at night and on weekends. And so the ideas that I put forth, we're seriously pursuing as far as counter hours. And even if the consultants kick in, or excuse me, the applicants kick in to play for consultant services, we'll likely still need to close the counter at least some portion of the week in order to process the work effectively. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much. I just don't know whether it's, okay. Do we have any speaker cards on this item? We have none. So we will go to questions the council may have for the staff. Mr. Talamontes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Prescott, for the good news. It sounds to me like we definitely have to go to closing down the counter, because the longer we keep it open, or if we maintain the same what we're doing now, we're just getting farther and farther behind. So yeah, I don't see it happening. I've had several people at the community that have submitted plans. Obviously, we've talked, how come it's taking so long? What's going on? Well, we're going through the hiring process. We're short some people. There's a lot of projects that all of a sudden arrived after having like 6 or 7 years of, right, now all of a sudden we're here.
Right.
At this. So I would say the closing down has to happen from my perspective. And you say you're one down, you're one person down as far as you're in the process of hiring?
That'll be filled very shortly.
And that'll be filled. But the increase in the development, it's going to require more people.
Right. The one position that will be filled soon is included in that 9 total planners.
So he or she has already got work and piling up for her to.
It's waiting
for him or her to show up.
Yeah, his or her future colleagues are waiting very eagerly. Yes.
So you can foresee that we're going to need additional bodies.
I think as long as the demand continues, we would, perfect world, sure, we have additional staff, but we know what that means.
I understand, but we've got to be proactive. I mean, we can't be reactive. Wait for the demand to show up. We're going to be behind the 8 ball already. This hiring process takes a certain amount of time.
It does.
So I would rather be proactive, because it's going to happen. It's not a matter of when, if, it's when.
We're already using outside consulting services to assist in the processing of projects. We would need to find additional revenue to add to that pool, or to give those consultants additional work.
And I know people say, well, don't hire because it's going to cost you more in the long run. a body as opposed to a consultant where you can hire him for a project, and then after that project is done and over with, release them.
Yeah, a consultant fee is, you save, you're right, when the consultant is finished, they leave, so you save in the long run. The consultant cost is actually greater than the cost of an associate planner, is that right? Yeah, greater than the cost of an associate planner. But consultant is temporary, you're right.
Oh, that's all I got now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone, Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Getting back to your implementation of the Burbank property portal, what is your vision of the information people can retrieve from that?
So we have what's called EPALS. It's Enterprise Permitting and Licensing System, and it's the system that building, planning, and public works and code enforcement use to issue permits and track the progress of projects. That software has an online component where you can just put in an address, your neighbor's address, what's my neighbor building, or if I'm buying a house, I can check and see, was that room built with permits? This, for now, goes back to 2006 when the EPALS was instituted, the permitting system, and eventually there will be a separate tab. We're currently digitalizing all of our records, previous records back to as long as we've kept them for building permits, and those will also be accessible online.
Would you also be able to put in there, because I know I get a lot of comments from folks that somebody tore my wall down, why did they tear it down? So the residents can key in their property and they'll give them what the lot size is in square footage to give them an idea? I mean, because those are questions that you would be bogged down with.
Yeah, you can access the assessors, the LA County Assessor's website and access the parcel maps, which will give you dimensions. It won't tell you that your fence is on that property line. The fence could have been built this way or that way. Ultimately, a property owner would have to hire a private surveyor to determine where precisely their property line is.
Cool. Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Springer.
Thank you for your presentation. So most of, I think you said most of the activity and the demand is for this ADUs, residential additions, residential remodels, and the commercial tenant improvements. So it's a service to our residents.
Yeah, the core services.
And so on this one chart, planning services, where are the, for example, the ADUs here? And how much time, how much more time do
what
they?
page is that? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I don't see a page number.
Oh, you don't have it. I'm sorry. Let me go to the presentation and we can see if I've got the right one.
It's entitled planning. It's entitled planning services.
Is that the one?
Is it this one
Yes.
here? Okay, good. The single-family administrative, single-family would fall under administrative and discretionary permits.
Okay. So, for example, an ADU, instead of taking 1 to 3 months, they would need to wait an additional 2 to 4.
Correct.
To see it through.
Correct. And with single family, and part of what's driving the calls for services is all new as well. And so there's a lot of questions about what this means, what does this code mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we're also dealing with property owners, the homeowner, particularly with the ADU. So the plans we get aren't often very professionally designed, or they're somewhat professionally designed. So the staff takes a lot of time working with these folks to get them where they need to be in order to submit and get their building permits or their ADU permit, for instance.
And I have a question. Like, if we used outside consultants for some of these projects to help us catch up, would the increase in the fees that we'd collect for those projects that we could move forward, would they cover the cost of the consultant?
Are you referring to the new fee schedule then, for if you submit an application?
Right.
A fee for a development agreement or a planning document.
Right. If we needed help, like moving some of the ADUs forward, and we needed a consult, if
the application fee wouldn't begin to cover the cost of actually processing it. You'll remember the pyramid or fee policy. There's a goal to get some of that money back, right? Or that we spend. I'm sorry, the phrase is slipping my mind, but and we opted by policy to get a less return from the single family application fee. It's 30% of actual costs, right?
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that doesn't begin to cover that cost. But so what we're thinking about is you tell an applicant, a developer, okay, look, here's your timeline. You're looking at 30 months, right? If you'd like to pay us for consultant services, planning consultant services, we can move that up for you a little bit. And it doesn't necessarily mean we'd use that consultant to process that application. We might use those consultants to knock out all the backlogged and pending those 558 or 56 applications I showed you. And then freeing the planners to process.
Okay. So in that case, the developer would pay the fee and that would cover the cost of the consultant?
They would cover the cost of the consultant, yes.
Okay, and if the counter were closed, say at noon, they closed, then the planners have the afternoon to catch up and do other things, it would be by appointment only in the afternoon? Like the counter would close?
We would accept, what we're thinking is that we would accept appointments from people who have existing applications in process. Not to submit an application, but to follow up on an existing application.
Okay, so in the morning they could submit it. Okay. Yeah. Because I know a lot of people have, well, some people have Fridays off, so it's their day to go and take care of things about town. Even maybe somebody who's an architect and who wants to do their own ADU. Maybe they have every other Friday off or something. So I personally think it would be better if we did it, if we closed the counter, say at noon throughout the week instead of closing it completely on a Friday.
That's helpful to know.
Because that Friday, I think, is a good day for a lot of our residents to take care of things like that.
If we had the staff, perfect world, I'd love to have it open at lunch. There's a lot of people who want to come in at lunch. That's their only 45 minutes to do that. And just the way the staffing works, it doesn't currently work. But I'll tell you, there are other cities for whom this is perfectly normal. The counter is open 8 to 1 daily, or 8 to 12 daily, or closed every Friday. So it's not unheard of for a lot of contractors, but the ones who have been used to become accustomed to the very high level of service in Burbank will require some adjusting.
So what do other cities do? Like, do they, are they behind like we are? Are they in the same crunch and just
my
overworked
anecdotal evidence is yes, they're all very busy. Different cities have different staffing levels. We say we're a city of 108,000, but we've got these 150,000 jobs, so daytime is about 200,000. So that's really who we're planning for, right? And we've got 9 current and advanced planning staff and 5 folks in transportation planning, right? In a city like Pasadena with about 146,000 residents, I don't know their number of jobs. They have 24 planners. So it's just, and that's a reduction for them, by the way, versus 8 years ago. I believe that Glendale has similarly reduced their staff size, but these different cities, they have to adjust their counter hours as well.
Okay. And I appreciate the responses that I've gotten, when people ask me, well, what's happening on this street? This house has been, fenced for 2 years now, and thank you. That information that I get, I can just pass it along, and I know that takes time.
Well, it means a lot to the CDD team to be that responsive. It really does. They take pride in that, and so this inability to keep up with that is challenging for them professionally. But as I mentioned, at some point we have to say, okay, how are we going to address this? And that's some of the things I've mentioned to you this evening.
Maybe we should have a restriction for council members as well.
Now, wait a minute.
Always happy to be responsive to the council members.
I take my ticket and I wait in line. Any other, are you done, Mrs. Springer?
Oh, let's see here. Oh, for something like updating the Burbank Center plan, if we had a grant for that and a consultant capable of doing that, would the grant cover the consultant, or we just have to postpone those things,
Well,
like the Burbank Center plan, which I know was 1997.
Right, it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
And there's some great elements of that, but it probably needs a refresh 20 years later. We would hire a consultant to do that. The issue is you still got to manage the consultant. You still got to deal with community outreach and communication. You still have to manage the contract, et cetera. So it's less than if we did the project ourselves, but it's still a significant amount of work.
Okay, I thank you.
Jess?
You know, thank you for all this information. It's a good thing to see it, and I think we just need to come back with another agenda item to discuss the staffing of your departments. I'd like to see a comparison like Councilmember Springer brought up of other cities, what they're doing, what they've done, you know, the number of people, number of personnel, you know, full-time equivalencies. Yeah, I mean, that's one way to compare. But I want to compare apples to apples and not, you know, obviously some city that's already built out and they're not going to be looking at any building for the next 10 or 15 years as opposed to where we are. But that would be for a future discussion. But this is good information to start with. Thank you.
Go ahead.
One more question. On the online payments and permitting, I think you said that you're eager to get it going. So how much is the cost of that, and what's keeping you from getting it going? And how long would it take?
I don't know the exact cost of it.
Okay.
There are some very simple things we can do. Some cities use PayPal, for instance, and we have to arrange talk to finance and treasurer, I believe, about this. But there are some quick things we can do without hiring someone to tweak ePals, for instance. And there is a component of ePals that we could maybe turn on, so to speak. But we're just working through that with IT.
Okay. And
our goal is by the end of, for online payment, end of this calendar year? By the end of the calendar year to get all the payments.
Oh,
Hopefully
okay.
sooner.
But like the rest of the world, they're hanging, they're waiting to hear from IT.
okay. I went to the mixed-use development standards on Saturday, and I think all the planners were there.
They're very committed.
They did a good job.
So we're building and the inspectors as well.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you.
Yes, Council, just a couple things if I might. One, Mr. Prescott, along with the other department heads, know regardless of workloads, this is not a year to propose adding staff. To inform you so you're aware as policymakers, yes. But as you're going to take on later tonight, some serious conversations about asking the community to step up. And so we're trying to find ways to manage with what we have. And Mr. Prescott's given you a few of those. One of those, however, is that we need to find a way to recruit and then retain the workforce he's been building so capably. And lately, I think you would admit they've been bringing you some pretty high quality work, and that has gone well. It's just not durable. This working till 8 or 10 at night and Saturdays has got to stop, or we'll lose these people. It can't keep up, right? So the direction tonight was to talk to you about realistic expectations so they could start scheduling having a more balanced life, and hence we might retain them. And then when we're on the other side of things, maybe we can come back to what would be ideal staffing if life allowed us a few dollars. But in the interim, we got to find ways to get by with what we have and manage expectations and a few of these efficiencies. And a big one is just reducing service levels a little bit, like the counter hours. So we can get through this, maintain some professionalism, but have people go home at some kind of a reasonable hour. Otherwise, they'll just simply find a better job and quit. Even if they like working here and they like the team, no one can keep that up forever, right? So in the short run, all we're doing is looking to retain the people we have and minimize service level impacts. But there's going to be some, either drawn out projects or requests for money from developers, or even service hours at the desk, right, counter hours. Public Works has a similar problem, and I think when Mr. Prescott gets there in coordinating with Public Works, this may help with the labor shortage I understand they have as well. So it may be a good thing to coordinate that and see what we can do.
That's one of the reasons I appreciate this report myself, because the community may well have, and in some cases seems to have been under the impression that we've done nothing in the 6 or 9 months since we learned about imminent financial problems, and talking now about ballot measures and so forth. And in fact, each department has been going through this kind of analysis of, how many are there and what are they doing. And I think even a layman can look at these numbers with regard to planning, and see that the scale of work that has to be completed is just, way out of line compared to the staff that's available. So what I'm saying is it's clear we don't have fat to cut. There's not fraud, waste, and abuse to be cut in planning because of too much staff. Were you finished? You typically say
yes, sir.
so,
I
so
just wanted to close with my biggest goal is manage expectations and recruit and retain a pretty neat team they put together. We'd like to keep them.
I personally support a full day, just because I think that becomes known as the day they're closed to coming into the counter, rather than, well, what time is it, what day, on this day they do that, and I prefer a full day. But and here's a twist for you, and I admit it's purely optics that I'm talking about. I don't like using a Friday for that off day, because then it looks like a casual day. Make this a 4-day weekend day to the public. That's the assumption. And so I would, I won't fight if everyone else thinks a Friday were the best, but I would gently nudge toward virtually any other day of the week that doesn't have that
Probably staff's leaning would be towards reduced hours during the week to match something similar what builders see in other cities. So if you're a developer or resident and you talk to one another, you have common practices. So
we're going to see a city survey of some kind anyway at some.
Okay, we could do that.
Is that a complicated prospect?
You weren't going to, but you are now.
Well, that's
so the answer is yes. We can do that. But I think staff's preference might be that, rather than close on Friday. There's some who might prefer we close on Friday, but all of us, including me, I would rather see us do more like reduced hours for the reasons you mentioned. It looks bad on Friday, and there's people who only get a particular day off.
Yep.
So closing for a whole day seems a bit problematic. But we can get you a survey of what other cities do, and specifically what staff would recommend.
Okay. This is a note and file item. Yes, yes, sir.
And to add where you kind of left off about the shortage of personnel in our planning department, and you're absolutely right. A lot of folks in the community, at least that I talk to, and they say, well, you got to cut everywhere, cut. But we already have. We're at bare minimums. And this is just another example. If we were to cut, just in conversation, if we were to cut, say, 10% of planning, what happens to all this development? What happens to people that want accessory dwelling units?
There's lost opportunity dollars down the line.
So we have the five of us have the tough balance of, one, getting the message out there, but two, as we deal with this process as we're moving forward, that, you know, people need to understand that the demand of our city has grown. It's not like it was 5 or 6 years ago. You look at today, they're you know, you got people staying here till 10 o'clock at night. They got families to go home to, but they're also working really hard. But all these projects and the demands of the public with plan check and, you know, code enforcement working on the weekends also.
It used to be when I could come in and walk around in my shorts, but
no more.
Now every once in a while I come across someone and I have to explain myself.
But these are the real issues that we, the Five on Council, are dealing with as far as, you know, tackling on this structural deficit for the next 30 years. Do we also, you know, like CD is a good example. Do we cut them and then we hurt people that want to, you know, add a bedroom or you know, these other projects? We have to be responsible to everybody. So I just wanted to piggyback.
And listen, you can always argue with him that we need 12 planners instead of 9. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a battle over money and why. But we don't have that choice now.
No, we don't.
So I think it's really important that we make clear on this department and all the others how things have been cut. Year after year to make great things possible, but other things have been cut, and what happens is employees get fed up with the work hours. They get fed up because there's no raise available, but in that city on the next train stop they will pay me more. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're up against. Mm-hmm. I remember a real genius offered a solution to when we were talking about city manager payroll. And he said, well, I have the fix right here. All you have to do is hire a city manager for $100,000, and that's got to be easy enough to find. And then 2 aides for $50,000 each. And I've saved you $100,000 over what you're talking about payroll. And that's just so mind-numbingly dumb because it pays no attention to the specifics of, you know what you can get for a $100,000 city manager? Anybody you can throw a rock at, pretty much, is going to take a shot at the money. But you're not going to get seasoned, experienced, with good intuition executive out of it. And we're trying to gather the best like that when we are having trouble affording it.
And what I like about Mr. Prescott's report is that it identifies the workload, it identifies the current amount of employees, and physically from phone calls to the desk hours, how much time. I mean, this clearly brings out this is a bare bones core value of in this case the planning department, code enforcement, and not to mention the other 2 departments that he really didn't talk about, the economic development. I mean, so this was a good update that gives us a lot to think about as we keep moving forward, especially every time we discuss the budget and you know, listen to community members' concerns about you need a cut. You know, you guys are top heavy, and
we could start by pointing to this report, and then we'll point to the others that follow it.
This was a good report
on other folks. Although you can go light on the organizational chart there. Go right ahead.
I'm just looking at the chart, building services, where there's the operational capacity for accessory dwelling units. The capacity is 56, and the current demand is 70. Residential additions 210. Current demand is 262, and residential remodels, the operational capacity is 204, and the demand is 255. This chart to me shows that our residents want to play an active role in their housing need. You know, they would like to build an ADU for their child coming home from college, or for, you know, their elderly parents, or maybe add an addition to house them or remodel. And I feel like everything that we can do, you know, to help them get caught up,
helps them too.
Absolutely, it helps our residents.
There's nothing worse than I just remodeled stories, and it's great not to have Burbank as a punchline to any of those lines. Because as I've told you, when I go to ribbon cuttings, especially business-related functions, people take the time to tell me, you guys have turned that department around, speaking of CDD. The customer service is great. I have, in the last 6 months, had one complaint related to customer service. And ironically, that just came today. So I haven't even talked to you about it yet, Patrick. But may I ask one question that I did forget when Patrick was up here? Did I understand correctly? Did you say that all plans that involve electrical or plumbing are currently going to a consultant?
No, some are. The more significant projects require that. Our new building official, Ron Takiguchi, his goal is to build that capacity in his division, in the building division, in order to prevent us, in order so that we don't have to send them out. At least some of them.
Yeah, I just, it did sound like all of them were going there now. And I thought, so we've got nobody left who knows electrical and
there's
plumbing.
talent there.
Okay.
We're nurturing it.
Thank you very much. I apologize. And now Mr. Talamonte may have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a comment in regards to a couple comments. This comes, and you mentioned it already, customer service. I mean, when people call the fire or police department, they want them now because it's some type of emergency, at least to them. So they want them now. When a developer comes to the planning department, they want to get their project approved as soon as possible because it's costing them money. So it's a customer service issue. You know, so we have to treat them both alike. You know, if we say we don't have enough personnel in the department, we can't use that in the fire or police department when our responses are getting longer and longer. No, it's not. You know, it comes down to customer service, and that's throughout the whole city. I can see department heads watching this tomorrow, the next day, and say, well, wait a minute, Patrick got up there and asked for, he didn't ask for them, but all of a sudden the council's talking about adding more personnel to his department.
Yeah, that was Talamonte's job.
I need personnel in my, the parks department. I need people in, all the other departments. But, I mean, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention and also the community's attention as well. Sometimes if it goes on set or unshown, nobody knows about it, other than people complaining to me out there. How come it takes me so long for my plans to go through? I just did a bedroom, that's all I did, and now it's taking me months to have one bedroom approved. But anyway, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and can I get a motion to note and file?
Move.
Second.
Do you vote on that even? I don't know. Yeah, well, I haven't run up against it yet.
It's okay. Do you want me to take a roll call?
No, that's all
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
We got a motion and a second, and I'm just going to elbow Sharon into agreeing with us. All right. Next report is on the election. Resolution requesting the Board of Supervisors of the County of Los Angeles to consolidate with the June 5th, 2018 statewide primary. And so we'll have a report from the city clerk.
Right here. So actually the three upcoming reports are all going to be about elections. So at this point, the first report, we are asking council to basically adopt a resolution requesting the Board of Supervisors, as you stated, to consolidate with the June 5th, 2018 statewide primary. And this came about at the council meeting on January 9th. During the study session, the council voted 5-0 it was determined that it was the best interest for the city of Burbank and its residents to hold a special municipal election. Council is being asked to adopt a resolution requesting the Los Angeles Board of Supervisors to consolidate the Burbank special municipal election with the statewide direct primary election. And this will be overseen by the County of Los Angeles, and that's the reason why we asked the Board of Supervisors to allow us to consolidate with the statewide election. It's desirable that the special election consisting of charter amendments to be consolidated with statewide direct primary election to be held on the same date. Holding the special municipal election with the statewide election date should increase voter participation compared to the standalone special election. Further, the consolidation allows that the city, precincts, polling places, and election officers of the two elections be the same as the County Election Department of County of Los Angeles canvass the return of election to be certified and provided to the Burbank City Clerk to certified at the next regular City Council meeting. Pursuant to California Election Code 10403, the Board of Supervisors of the County of Los Angeles hereby requested to consent and agree to consolidation of the special municipal election with the statewide direct primary election on June 5th, 2018. As far as the fiscal impact, we will be discussing the next report for asking council to approve to enter into a PSA with Martin Chapman, and we'll discuss the breakdown of the cost. So at this time, if you don't have any questions, I would like to ask council if they can adopt a resolution.
Mr. Frutos.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, just real quick, just for the benefit of the members in the audience and people at home watching, explain the state law, how it changed, and how we have to go to a consolidated election because of our numbers, because I didn't see it in the report, and people still ask.
It's coming up.
Okay, then I'll
It's
hold
coming.
off. Okay, thank you.
Madam City Attorney?
And I was going to say, this is separate from that issue. So this
Yeah.
one, the council wanted to get the timing of everything to get this on so that it's where, if the voters vote, the election would actually answer that question. Should we go to even number of years? And we're asking for this to happen in June of 2018 so that depending how the voters vote on the charter amendments, it would affect what happens to our future council elections. So that's why really June 2018 was the only time to put this, or hold your own special municipal election, which I think we've talked about before.
But I suspect the point he wants to make is that we didn't open this can of worms.
Right.
And say, well, let's time to muck about in election law a little bit.
Right, and yeah, I was just meant that you're absolutely right. The whole thing got started because of state law, and we were going to talk about
The
that. So.
SB 415, and
if I got you
and
right.
that will
that's
be
exactly what I was-
that will be further discussed in
Another agenda item tonight.
The third report coming.
Perfect. I'll hold off till then.
We will kind of touch up on it and explain how council the decision also over not calling for a primary. But if you need, I'm happy to also answer.
I'll
the
wait till that
questions.
agenda item.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any speaker cards on this side? Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't ask you. I didn't ask you if you want any comments on this item. And if not, I'll go to speaker cards and then we can have another chance. Okay.
I had questions earlier and they were cleared up. I don't think I need to go through them, just some verbiage issues, but.
Okay. And Mr. Talamontes, nothing on this one? Okay. So, we're looking for a vote from the council.
And we don't have any speaker cards.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We don't.
I didn't think anybody snuck up while you were talking.
Nope,
so.
we don't have them.
Okay. So can I get a motion here somewhere? Ms. Springer.
Adopt a resolution of the Council of the City of Burbank requesting the Board of Supervisors of the County of Los Angeles to consolidate the June 5th, 2018 special municipal election with the statewide primary election to be held on the same date pursuant to Section 10403 of the California Elections Code.
Second.
Roll call.
Please.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes.
Councilmember Talamantes?
Yes.
Councilmember Frutos?
Yes.
Mayor Rogers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm going to let you handle the next three.
Okay,
Why
so
don't I
I'm
do
going
that?
to move on to
I'm
report
going to
number
grab
2.
a cup of coffee.
Okay. I'll be here when you come back.
Okay.
So report number 2, basically we're asking council to authorize us to enter into professional service agreement with Martin Chapman and Company for supplemental mailing, authorized allocation of funds associated with special municipal election for service, and also provided to Los Angeles County, and additional legal noticing that we are required to post for the public and the voters. So basically, going back to what I stated earlier, this was discussed during our January 9th study session in regards to looking at overall election because of SB 415 and the compliance with the SB 415 to move our election from odd number years to even number years. In discussing this matter, also council directed us to send a supplemental information booklet, as we did for Measure B, to our voters. And this will include all the information that will be basically adopted, such as, of course, the ordinance that we're adopting, calling for the election that's coming before you, the charter changes that we're making, the city attorney impartial analysis, also the argument for and against. So basically that the supplemental booklet, it would include everything for the voters to understand exactly what they're voting for. Council directed us to go to Martin Chapman and get an estimate. In addition to that, we also obtained an estimate for the county, from the County of Los Angeles, for the services they will be conducting to place our 2 measures on the ballot. And the third item that we have is our required legal notices that we have to publish in the newspapers. The total for Martin Chapman, and again, please note, this is completely an estimate, very rough estimate. Why do I say that? Because it depends on how many pages we have. It depends on the end result of what we're going to turn in for the arguments, for the pages, how many pages we have for the charter amendments, the question that the city attorney will be discussing with you today. So the number can go up and down, and of course we're hoping that it doesn't go higher than what we have, but it could, depending on the pages, and also depending on the registered voters at the time when they call in for the June 5th elections. So for Martin Chapman, we're looking at approximately $184,671. For the County of Los Angeles, we're looking at about 150 plus, 150, 150. And for legal notices, it's about 26,250. Now, we have added contingency 5% to both the county and the legal noticing, and that gives us a total of $361,071. And we're asking to council to authorize the city clerk to enter into an agreement with Martin Chapman, also to allocate the appropriation of funds for fiscal year 2017-18 budget be appropriated by $361,071 from revenue account, and I have the number, so when you make the motion, you have to read that into it, and it would be appropriated in a general fund. So if the funds are not being spent, of course, it doesn't go anywhere. It stays in the general fund, but if for some reason the number comes back a lot higher, we will definitely come back to council if need to, and we'll ask for additional funds if we have to. With that, do you have any questions for me? Okay. You ready for a motion?
Well, yeah, what I get from it is we've got to spend money to spend money.
You have to spend money to change, to go out to the voters and notify them and get their input.
Sure.
Yeah.
Could I ask on the legal noticing, obviously we have the Times and the Daily News. What other print publications, if any, do you use?
Yes. We're required to publish it also in Spanish, so we will be publishing in La Opinión. They're the adjudicated paper for the Spanish language. In addition to that, if you recall, during our last election, we also had to print in Thai and Tagalog and Korean. So now we're only having to print in Korean. The other two languages are no longer required. So at this time, at least for this particular election. So we will be printing additional supplemental books in Korean language. However, we do not need to put it in legal advertisement, because what we'll do is we'll have the link in our website and we'll ask the voters if they're interested to get it in their language. We will provide it to them in a hard copy. We will print it and provide it to them, or they could see it online.
And is there a way yet for the outlets that purport to be journalism, online, can apply for, becoming qualified for this?
Unfortunately, the state has to adjudicate
They
them.
haven't changed that yet?
No, they haven't.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I understood there was at least a couple of years ago discussion of allowing some online outlines, but
you're correct, but nothing has surfaced.
Nothing
and
happened with it? Okay.
Nobody's,
Because, I don't think we should have to save the LA Times all on our back. We would like to split it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. That's all I have. So I'm now going to look for speaker cards.
No, I don't have any.
No speaker cards. Okay, so questions from the staff, from the council for the staff. Okay, I'll bet the staff has some questions for council, but we're going to pass that section right up and go to council action on this. Does anyone have a motion? Thank you. And okay, you're going to read it?
Mm-hmm.
Go right ahead.
Authorize a professional services agreement with Martin and Chapman Company for supplemental mailing. Authorize allocation of funds associated with special municipal election for services to be provided by the Los Angeles County Registrar, legal noticing and translations, in the amount of $361,071.
Correct. $361,071. Yes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Talamonte seconds.
And I'm sorry, Councilmember Springer, you read item number 2 and 3, correct?
Actually, she only...
I meant fiscal year.
Did you read number 1?
Well, she can just say she includes all of that in her recommendation.
You can include 1, 2, and 3.
Would you like to do that?
I include items 1, 2, and 3 in the recommendation.
Thank you. All right, I have
covered.
Councilmember Springer for a motion.
Oh,
has anybody seconded?
And
Okay.
just seconded.
Thank you. Councilmember Springer?
Yes.
Councilmember Talamantes?
Yes.
Councilmember Frutos?
Yes.
And Mayor Rogers?
Yes.
Thank you. And for our final report, I'm going to pass this on to our city attorney. She will be providing the report for the election and the proposed ballot measure. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to tag team this. I'm going to do the first part, and then the part of the recommendation that says designate members of council to consider for preparing arguments for and against. I'm going to let the city clerk will take it back over. So the purpose of tonight's session, and we're going to go to the PowerPoint in a minute or two, is to go over the ballot questions, go over some of the charter amendments again so that you can see it one more time and give us feedback on them. And before we get there, I wanted to hit the Burbank Unified School District information. Last time the council requested, when we talked about the Burbank Unified School District, of getting something official from them, and there is a letter. Also, what we did is, after talking with the, I should say the city clerk spoke with the superintendent, what we did is we changed the language in the charter amendment. So we're not taking them out of the charter. Burbank Unified School District, Section 1100 of the Board of Education, it's on page 1 of your staff report, will still be part of the charter, and the only thing we're clarifying now is that their election process will be covered by state law. And so they're still part of the charter. I think it's pretty clear, and hopefully that takes care of everything, and they agreed with that, and you have a letter, an official letter to that effect from the superintendent, I believe the board chair. So if there's no questions on that, I'm going to go on to the ballot question language. And so when we go to the second one, which is the election stuff, I'll talk a little bit more about the SB 415 and how that all plays in. But the first ballot question that we're putting on has to do with the electric fund transfers. We call them in lieu fees. And I'm going to move on to that. In the actual charter language, the new charter section is going to be called the utility department transfers, so that the language stays consistent with what the charter looks like already. But first off, I'd like to talk about the actual, and if we can get the actual ballot questions. So here's some rules of the road. Before I put it up, we're going to talk about the ballot question. I'll read through it. Everyone has it in front of you. The word and highlights on this, and I just go that way, right? Except I closed it. Sorry. There we go. Okay, I hit.
We're doomed.
I know you are.
Was
Jim.
my mic on?
Gosh, you're stuck with me. The words, shall the measure be adopted, have to be in it. This is, in this measure, what we're doing is we're asking the voters to approve a change to the charter that will basically say what we've been doing for decades with transferring money from the electric fund to the general fund, which is paid out of retail ratepayers, pay for those transfers, that we can continue to do that. And based on the ruling of the court, we needed to comply with Prop 218. The court said it wasn't grandfathered under Proposition 26, those transfers. And since the council raises the rates every year, or not raises, sets the rates every year, we didn't have a rate change last year, that it wasn't grandfathered in. And that we also didn't explicitly say in the current charter that it was payable through the electric ratepayers. So to clean all of that up, we're asking the voters to adopt an amendment to the charter. And what happens on the ballot, you get 75 words to convey in a neutral way a synopsis of what we're asking them to do. So what you have in front of you is that ballot question. And because this is considered, and I'm going to put this in quotes, a tax under Prop 218, we have to, for all ballot measures, you have to say the word, shall the measure be adopted, so that's part of our 75 words. We have to tell them the rate involved, that's the 7%. We have to say approximately how much funds will be generated, that's the 12.5 million. And then we have to say how long it will last, and that's when we say until ended by voters. And you heard about some of that last week from our pollster about how you can word, and that's one of them. So just to read it really quick for the public and for those viewing, it's, so the ballot question, what people will be answering yes or no on is to maintain essential city services infrastructure like police, fire, parks, libraries, streets, and street lighting. Shall the measure be adopted, amending the City of Burbank Charter to continue the past practice of transferring not more than 7% of Burbank Water and Power's gross annual sales of electricity paid by retail electric ratepayers, providing approximately $12.5 million annually to the city's general fund until ended by voters, with all money spent to benefit Burbank residents. That's the question. So I don't know if you want to think about it a moment and have me go on to the actual charter language, or whether you want to give me feedback. We can do it whatever way you want.
Can I ask if, let's say for a moment this is approved, goes through. Obviously, I understand there would be a problem if we wanted to change 7 1/4 to 9 1/4 or 1 1/4. or if we wanted some big change like that. But if we spot a typo, a misspelling, some bad grammar, something not substantive, can we change that after tonight?
Not on the charter amendment.
Okay.
I mean, we'll change what after tonight? So one's a ballot question.
If I see that it says transferring with 1 R instead of 2.
You can tell me that right now.
Yeah, okay, well, what I'm counting on is seeing something later, and yeah.
So this is the process we're in. If you spot something, and let me tell you, when you start playing around with words, if you say to me, there's a typo here, obviously we want to fix that, right?
Yeah.
But changing a with and an of could make a difference in a sentence.
Absolutely.
So anything like that, we're going to bring this back next Tuesday night to call the election. So we want to get your feedback tonight, because when you call the election, this ballot question and the next one for the elections has to be solid. That's it. That's what's going to get printed, everything else. So if you have something that you want to suggest, what we can do, and you're not ready to do it tonight, we can bring it to you next Tuesday night. You're going to have 2 different questions, but we obviously, staff would prefer that we get all your feedback tonight. This question especially has been vetted by so many people,
Yeah.
I cannot tell you. And trying to get everybody's feedback into one that makes sense. What I think is really important is that it makes sense. So one of the things I did is last week I sent the 2 ballot questions to everyone in my office, everyone, lawyers, secretaries, support staff, everybody, and said, come tell me what you believe this means. And from that, we did a lot of changes to both, especially the election one. And people helped me find new, you can only do 75 words. This one, I believe, is at 72.
Oh, yeah, I've been there. I know
The other's at
what you're
75.
talking. Yeah.
So we really did try it out on people to make sure people understood what it meant. That was the whole point. So I think there's a lot of things at play here. But clearly, if council wants to take a different direction,
I'm not talking about a group rewrite or anything like that. We know how difficult that is. But I'm just saying, if we spotted a problem, you'd rather hear about it now than...
right, and if you don't have it now, I'd rather hear about it tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And just also so you know, we did, we learned from what was done by the polling in terms of, that here are things that are important to our citizens, and these are general fund costs. This is what we spend general fund money on. That's where that list came from. And since street lighting has been one of the things that's always been funded by this, we wanted to make sure we called that out. So all I have to ask is, unless there is something really that you see that's glaring to us or you think would make it better, I obviously, at this point, I have no personal attachment to this, because it's been so many different people's words. Trying to meld it into
somebody else.
Yeah, and no, but melding it into something that makes sense and hopefully makes sense to the voters. So.
All right. Now I have the question or 2 for later, but I'm going to go to my colleagues first, because that just seems like the right thing to do.
You're the best, Mr. Mayor.
Would
You're the
anyone
best.
care to comment or ask a question?
No, for one, I'm happy with what we got here before us.
Same with everyone else, or a different?
I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. You got me curious.
Just one clause. I have I'm just curious. Yeah, and you understand through the talks about this issue in the past that it's very important to me that people understand their rates aren't going up. They're not signing on to something that didn't exist last year. And I like that it includes, we will continue the past practice of. I would just like to somehow move that up, but I don't see a place to move it because it's an entire sentence above it. as I recall from candidates' statements and arguments and rebuttals, we're not allowed to do any bolding or underlining. Okay, so
I mean, I'll be truthful. I played around with the idea because there was so much back and forth about stuff. Do we move everything up and put, with all the money spent to benefit Burbank residents to maintain essential, and move that whole first line, like through, to maintain essential through street lighting, down to after the question mark? So it would start with, shall the measure be adopted, amending, and it would end with, until ended by voters with all money spent to benefit Burbank residents to maintain essential city service infrastructure like, and then put that. And one of the reasons I didn't do it this way is I figure there's much smarter people out there than myself. And when you go and look at many of the measures where people are asking their ratepayers, in this case, our constituents, to agree to something like this, they usually do the laundry list at the beginning, like to maintain our services, you know, to maintain. So that's why I did it the way.
And you know what? It just occurred to me. We've also got arguments for letters and other places that argument could be advanced. So I you know what? I'll withdraw my own minor. That was it. That's.
But I will say a really important thing we know is getting educational information out to people over why we're doing this is going to be so important, because sometimes many voters only read this ballot question. And if we're lucky, they'll actually read the charter amendment. Or if they're really lucky, they might do the arguments for and against and maybe the impartial analysis. So it's really important that we continue to talk about this and do educational, informational pieces about why we're doing this.
Yeah, and the larger why, we're not doing it because we wanted to. The whole consolidation. And on this smaller one, we're not taking more money away from you. At least not yet. Wait till you get to a little further down the ballot. But we're not taking more money from you. We're cleaning up language that
a court told us we should.
Yeah.
At this point. So that's really why we're doing it. I just wanted to briefly, if it's okay with the council, to go on to the actual charter amendment that's being done for this. And so I'm gonna.
Okay, I didn't know if you want to go one by one or read all three and then go back over the three, or.
Oh, so I have just this question. So I'm sorry, because did anyone else have comments on the actual ballot question for this one?
Nope.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it was
then
just me.
I wanted to move to the amendment that went with it, just because it's still talking about the same topic, so there was no confusion. And this isn't on the ballot. This is, if you can bring up the presentation, please. So last time when we were here, we and talked to the council, we showed the charter language, what would actually be written in the charter, and this is it. And it's sort of hard to read, but specifically one of the council members, Councilmember Springer, had asked us to also make it clear that the council's authorized to set the rates. And so that's why number 2 was added. And then we got more feedback, absolutely was right. And we added the words retail electric from what's in your, the staff report. So the staff report listed the new charter amendment, and what's on the screen and in your PowerPoint is the paragraph that we actually changed. And the only thing that we did different was to clarify that that the purpose, and this is the meat of the section, everything else is background. The purpose is to explicitly approve the past practice of funding the transfers from retail electric ratepayers and to approve such practice on a go-forward basis. As such, Burbank Water Power is authorized to continue including the cost of the transfers in retail electric rates or as a surcharge to retail electric rates, 2, the council is authorized to set retail electric rates, including the cost of the transfer in retail electric rates or as a surcharge to retail electric rates on an annual basis. And 3, at the discretion of the council to transfer up to 7% of BWP's gross sales of electricity from retail ratepayers to the city's general fund. So that was in response to.
You say that like it's so simple.
But this is part of the whole charter amendment. So if you remember, the ballot question is what they're voting on, but if they say yes to the ballot question and we get a majority, then this amendment will go into effect and be in the charter.
Okay.
Okay, so, and the beauty with the amendment is we're not limited to any word count. So we were able to explain the past history of what we've been doing since 1958. We were able to talk about the court case, and then that the purpose of this was to bless what we've done in the past, and this is what we're doing moving forward. And it also says that it's, the last section of that was, is intended to apply retroactively, so that it's very clear.
Excellent.
Okay, the last part on the doing this, so calling the election for the ballot measure for the utility department transfers, whether you call it the electric fund or the in lieu fees, that would happen next week, as I said, when we bring back the ordinance to adopt to call the election. And to do that, under Prop 218, the council has to put this on for the June election as an emergency item, and it has to be a unanimous vote. And the reason I wanted to bring this to your attention, it's unlike other types. So normally, a measure that's considered a tax measure under the Constitution, it's done when your regular general election would be. So it's a double whammy for us, because if everything passes, the second item we talk about, our next general election won't be till November 2020. And given our financial status, that's why I believe you have the ability to make the findings that there's a fiscal emergency and that it has to go in June. Because we show, and as Mr. Ardo clearly showed last week when going over the comprehensive annual financial report, showed that without this, if we don't get the in lieu restored, if we don't get those transfer restored to the general fund, we will be going down the path for the 18-19 budget to use $10 million of our reserves. And it also shows all the other effects. I mean, this is a long time we've been talking about structural imbalance. Based on that, the council will be asked to vote on that as a, hopefully all 5 of you will be here, and it will be a 5-0. If that doesn't happen, then we can't put it on the ballot. So that's one of the findings that we actually have written into the ordinance to call the election. Okay, so we wanted to sort of give a primer of that this week, so next week when we do it, you'll all be familiar and be able to, if there's any questions as to that, I'd be happy to answer it. If not, then I'm going to move on to the ballot measure to the whole elections part. So are we
no
okay
objections,
for me to go
nobody
to that?
has, okay. Let's proceed.
Okay, so I want to go back and give a little bit of background of what we're doing. There was a bill called SB 415 that's been chaptered, it's law now, that basically says, and there was a recent Attorney General opinion that said this bill applies to charter cities, because that was really an open question. And we discussed this months ago with the council that, you know, the council could ignore the Attorney General, but then probably be faced with a lawsuit and have to defend that. And the purpose of the bill was to say, if there has been a significant decrease in voter participation, looking at even number year elections versus your odd number year, then you fall under this bill and you need to change your elections from odd number years to even. And so back when we originally brought this, the city clerk gave you a lot of information that showed statistically where we were, and clearly there was a big difference in our participation when it was a consolidated statewide election versus our own standalone municipal general elections. And at that time, last summer, the council decided to start down this road. And that's one of the reasons we've taken the actions that we're going to talk about. So in doing that, the council looked at what are their options. Last week, somebody raised, well, why are you getting rid of the primary elections? Well, one of the reasons is once you make that decision that you're going to go to even number years, that means the first one would be 2020 if this is all passed by the voters. Starting in 2020, the state primary would be in March, the general elections would be in November. That means and the council decided they didn't want to have that long of a campaign season anymore. That would mean from March to November, that's a long time for campaigning to be taking place. So the council made the decision to recommend that we forego the primary, and that's how that came about. So I'd like to go ahead and read the ballot question as written. And again, this is another one that we went through a lot of different iterations. There's a lot going on. And I took seriously the goal of the law, which says it's supposed to be neutral, but a synopsis. And when you have so many different things happening, that gets really hard when you're down to 75. But also a full synopsis of what you're trying to accomplish. Yes. And so when you're limited to 75 words, it's tough. So with the recommendation of some different people, and if I could have the presentation, please. Okay, thank you. So this is the one. We put in numbers to break up what was going on because everybody said it read easier and it was clearer. So by doing that, you use numbers. Everything counts towards your word count. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. To increase voter participation in city elections, shall the measure be adopted amending the City of Burbank Charter, changing the city odd number year elections to November of even number years, coinciding with state federal elections conforming to state law, eliminating city's primary election, extending elected city official terms once by 1 year and 8 months to transition to even number year elections, making Burbank Unified School District elections subject only to state law, and simplifying election process. So when you write these, I would love to say more words. I like using articles like those, but those count. And we only have 75 words, and we're at 75 words. So there was a lot of balancing and decisions made. We thought it was really important for people to understand that going to even number years would coincide with state and federal elections, and that it was also to conform with state law. We thought that was important for people to understand. We thought it was important because when we use the term here, extending the council's terms, I'm going to go to the charter amendment in a minute for you to see the real language. We're really changing your terms from 4 years to 5 years and 8 months, which is an extension of 1 year and 8 months. But it has to be done to transition. So we thought it was really important that members of the public understood that's being done to transition to even number year elections. And then there's a whole bunch of little cleanup things we did to take things out of the charter because they're in the ordinance code, and to make it clear where the charter, to make clearer now that we're really going to be going under state law, because we're moving to consolidating all of our elections with LA County. So they're going to be governing what we're doing anyways, for the most part, and they really do follow the state law. So it's just a lot of cleanup items to implement what we're trying to do with this process. So that's the ballot question. We're in the same boat. This one's even tighter. We're down to 75 words, and I have to tell you, things like City of Burbank's one word, Burbank Unified School District's one word, So it's not like we can shorten by saying, oh, let's use acronyms or anything. We're pretty much there, but I'm welcome if there's feedback on this. Again, this was another one where there was so much going on. And to me, I thought it was important to start with, to increase voter participation, because that's really what this is all about. So I don't know if there's comments, questions about this one.
Bob Frutos?
I have one question that has been brought up to me a lot by different members of the public, so I need you to address it from a legal standpoint. If the voters vote this down, what legal bind now, because we're our own charter city, they didn't want us to amend this, and it doesn't go forward. As a legal counselor, what's going to happen? Because a lot of people are like, I'm not going to support this. And I try to explain it's the law, it changed. What's going to happen?
So this is what would happen. If this does not pass, then as we discussed, we would go ahead and do the 2019 elections as per the charter. And I would say that we'd have to see why it didn't pass, how close, but to go out and educate and explain and do it again. Because what will happen, I believe, is if this doesn't pass, the law basically says you're not supposed to hold any more odd number year elections unless you had a plan, and our plan is bringing this forward. If it fails, then we need to go back, and really I believe the outcome would be we would get sued. And then the council will have to decide, what do we do? And I have to tell you, this hasn't fully played out in the courts yet. There are cases that are pending against charter cities in the arena of you have to go to district-wide elections when it's like we are, where they're non-districts. And what happens when your voters say no? You know, your charters say yes. So a court may say, we don't care what the charter says, you're going to have to do it anyway. So if that were to happen to us down the road, there's more things in ours than just go to even number. It's the practicality of how we do that. The council made the decision to eliminate the primaries. So if we were to go to a court might not touch that. They may just say you have to go to even number years and you're going to have to do both. Which could get very, very expensive for a city like us. I think, you know, the city clerk had given you numbers in the past. Then a court would have to say how they wanted us to deal with the transition for terms. You know, what would they tell us we'd have to do? So that's, I mean, really sort of what it comes down to. And other cities, when they've been sued over their charters that say, you know, we don't have districts, part of the settlement has always been, let's go out to a vote. It's almost what we're doing with the utility transfers. Is we had a court saying, well, the way your charter's written, it's not quite good enough, and you need a vote from your residents to keep doing what you've been doing. That's where I think we'd be in a year or two if this doesn't pass. So, you know, I think it's very important, again, education of letting people know why we're doing it and why we're going to vote. You know, right now, our charter says what it does, and, you know, if we were sued, council would need to have to back up and say, do we want to fight this? How do we want to handle it? And make arguments. But if you remember at the time when you made the decision, it was, we don't fully have to take on this, whether we want to fight whether this new law applies to us or not, because it's the right thing to do, because the purpose of it is to increase voter participation, and clearly the numbers we have shows that we had greater participation during even number year elections, especially when it's tied to November.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else with comments or questions? Mr. Talamonte.
Yes, thank you, Madam City Attorney. I've got a question on number 4.
Right, yes.
I hope that doesn't confuse the voters, because they might be questioning what's the reason for that, or does that have to be included in there?
So I have gone back and forth myself. I laugh only because it's been something I have struggled with. In the ballot, when we actually call the election, we explain it a little bit better in terms, I shouldn't say explain it better. It's because you're not limited to words in that part, so in the recitals, we can say, the school district also has to comply with that new state law. They have to go to even number years. There's no point in them being under the charter's prescriptions as it pertains to elections. They will be governed by state law. That's what they're doing. And in fact, in many ways, we're doing the same thing, the changes we've made. So the charter now says they're subject to our charter for their elections. That's why I believe it's important for us to change it. And that's why we're doing it. I have struggled with, do we say nothing about it in this ballot question? I mean, it's a judgment call. We have 75 words. There's so much going on. Do you not put it in? But I still think it should be one of the amendments. It's part of this. If you did nothing, if we were to do nothing in our charter, left it as it is, the reason I have an issue with that is then the avenue, the road that the Board of Education is going down is saying, we don't have to comply with your charter anymore. We're just going to be under state law. But to me, they could do, okay, I don't want to, they have their own legal counsel, so I don't want to step in. But, arguably, they could do both. They feel like it's better for them to just do it this way, to do it the way they're going. They've done their own resolutions to the Board of Supervising asking to be consolidated in the future elections with them. We're going to have to do the same thing if this passes, go to the board and say, now we want everything consolidated with you. And we don't believe there's going to be resistance, especially since we're not doing it till 2020. They're going down their own path. So that's why I feel it should be part of the charter.
How about a separate page?
Well, we talked about that. So we could do it separate, and we did. We
because
talked
the whole scenario is confusing enough. Then you throw this last in, that's what I got. What is this really?
So when we originally talked to you back in the beginning of the month, we said we were going to do a third measure because we thought we were removing BUSD from the whole charter, which had people really confused. So thank you. So when we changed to, we're just changing that they're governed by state law for their elections. But if council wants to do that, that takes nothing for us to add it, quite frankly. It's a third. If it doesn't pass, so be it. If it passes, fine. But yes, it costs more money because it will be another page in the, another ballot measure, more stuff that has to be translated, more pages in the pamphlet, but clearly we can do that.
I think it just makes it easier to understand moving forward for the voter.
Well, I have
that's
no
my
problem.
opinion.
But you're talking about the sheer volume of words in this paragraph.
No, I don't disagree. I think that's really a council call, and we had originally told you we would do it separate, and it was only when we got them to stay in the charter that we thought, oh, okay. But clearly, that's a council call, and we can separate it out, because that's why we're doing all of these as in lieu separate.
I would encourage my colleagues to maybe entertain that, to separate out, separate it to a different page, okay, so.
It would be a separate measure, and we would do a ballot question like, shall the measure amending the charter that says Burbank Unified School District elections will no longer be governed by the charter, but only governed by the state law, so they can be in compliance with SB 415 or state law. We can do that pretty easily.
Are you done, Jess?
I would agree, just because I don't want to confuse voters. If Jess was already, Councilmember Telemontes was already confused, I'd rather take that extra step to really make sure that that's a stand, because you bring up a very good point, and I definitely would support.
Well, it's very easy to do. So if that's the council's majority, then
there's two more council members here.
You're one of them. I think you just remembered that.
So if it's moved to like another ballot measure question, then it could be, it's just voted on separately? Like
Yes.
Okay. No.
You're good with that as well?
Yes, absolutely.
So, okay, so could you just do a motion for me, if you don't mind, that moving that we make it a third ballot measure?
Well, do we need Bob back here for that?
We can wait till he comes
Yeah,
back.
he's stepped out to the, but in the meantime, have you seen the double blue moon tonight? I haven't yet.
Not yet. But in the meantime, were there any other points on
work,
this?
work.
Or do you want me to hold up, wait for everything?
If there's something we can do without.
I just have to emphasize the fact that we do really need to educate the public.
Yeah,
we have
and it's, sometimes it's surprising and shocking, and sometimes it's understandable. But when there's a change, people attribute it to the city. I was reading today a note on Facebook, somebody upset about how the city allows AT&T Uverse to offer a service that's in one place but not in another. And, you got to tell them, they don't ask us, they don't send us an advanced copy of the guide, and we have to pay full freight on any cable service to this building. But the thing is, people will, so why does the city want to move the elections? And then we'll have those same usual 4 or 5 people who will read minds and come up with fantastical stories. And it's as simple as a new state law. All right, Mr. Frutos is here.
So do we have any other feedback on the actual ballot question?
None.
And
It's just,
So, make a motion to
thank you.
add a third ballot
add
measure?
a third ballot measure with the number 4 bullet point.
So it would just be the BUSD. We would still have simplifying the election process, and I can say that maybe I'll have a couple of words I can add back in now. So, yes.
We who have to do these word count things for every election are enjoying your unhappiness.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
All right.
I need your biography in 75 words. And we've got a second, so to the city clerk.
Councilmember Talamantes?
Yes.
Councilmember Frutos?
Yes.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes.
Mayor Rogers?
Yes.
Thank you.
So there's one other item I'd like to go over, if I could have the presentation again, and it's the actual, the new section that we're adding to the charter amendments. And it was, you had it last time, but I changed the wording some because I wanted to make it clearer what exactly was happening with the terms. And then I even changed it a little bit compared to what's in the staff report. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the, and that's the ballot measure question. So it's the next one, and I did it again. Sorry. Thank you. So it's the next new section. So this is about allowing for the transition to the November 2020 elections and to go to even numbers. So this is what it will read. And this is, to me, the crux of, in part of what we're doing this whole change for, which is to allow for the transition of holding general municipal elections in November of even number years. The following is authorized. The first general municipal election in even number years will be November 2020. The term of office for the 2 council members elected in 2015 shall be 5 years and 8 months, an extension of 1 year and 8 months, holding office until their successors are elected, qualified, and seated, but no later than December 31st, 2020. And then the term of office for the 3 council members, city treasurer, and I'll make that council member a capital M. City treasurer and city clerk elected in 2017 shall be 5 years and 8 months, an extension of 1 year and 8 months, holding office until their successors are elected, qualified, and seated, but no later than December 31st, 2022. This section of the charter supersedes any other charter section in contradiction hereof. So the purpose of this is to get us to the transition so that we can actually hold the first general election, which would be our first council member election in November of 2020. And it clearly spells out that the first one would be November of 2020. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that one.
I
don't.
Bob, anything? Go ahead.
I mean, I'm not an expert wordsmith, so I kind of leave it open to my colleagues, but if I'm reading this right, the first general municipal election and even number of years will be November 2020. I got that. That's our next election. The term of office for the two council members elected in 2015 shall be 5 years and 8 months. That's, I don't know if that's the right transition word that I'm looking for to understand it a little bit better if I was just a lay person picking it up. Again, I'm not criticizing
Oh,
you,
no, that's okay.
But if you read the term of the two council members elected in 2015 shall be 5 years and 8 months. That's where I'm kind of confused. An extension of 1 year and 8 months. So I got it when you put it in parentheses. Shouldn't there be a different type of transition word? The term of the office, or the term of office for the two current council members elected in 2015 shall be extended by 5 years and 8 months.
Well, it's not,
like that.
this was the key.
I'm
So
just asking for wordsmith.
So what I could do is say, shall be 5 years and 8 months instead of 4 years, because part of what the key is to this one is your terms are set by the charter and it says 4 years. There's a state law which may or may not apply, which like everything, because we're a charter city, lo and behold, how many things apply to us even when they shouldn't, that says you're not supposed to extend a term more than 12 months. We clearly have to go more than 12 months because you can't get here from there, right? You can't get to even. My argument has been, we are a charter city. The charter sets the terms. So we're changing from a 4-year term to a 5-year, 8-month term, which is an extension of 1 year and 8 months. So maybe one of the things we could say is the term of office for two council members shall be 5 years and 8 months instead of 4 years, or instead of 4 years shall be 5 years and 8 months, an extension of 1 year.
Can you throw in there somewhere, you know, for the purposes of the transition or only in the transition year?
Well, that's why.
A possible compromise might be, shall the 4-year term of the council be extended by 1 year and 8 months?
See, this isn't the ballot question.
I know, but I'm not saying shall it. I'm trying to get the language for you.
Right.
So instead of saying it's a 5-year, 8-month term, say the 4-year term shall be extended by 1 year and 8 months.
Only, but and I'm looking for only in the transition year.
So let me do this. Let me explain. It's what I can do is explain it's only one time. I mean, I thought it was sort of clear because we say to allow for the transition, but the reason I don't want to say just extend the term, this is legal nuance. I want to say the term is 5 years and 8 months, because that way, if anybody comes back and says, well, this state law says you can only extend for 12 months. We're saying we didn't just extend it. The charter actually changed their term from 4 years to 5 years.
Yeah, I defer on that point. So I got it.
But I can try making it a little bit clearer that it's going from 4 years to 5 years and 8 months to cover, for the transition. I can try to play around with it.
Yeah, you're trying to say we're coming back to 4 years. We're just doing it with two people.
And maybe we say that, because it's also for everyone's. Everyone's terms have to be extended, not just the 2015 voters. It's also all of you elected in 2017. Everyone's terms have to be. Because the 2017, instead of coming back in 2021, they're back in November of 22. So one of the things I could say is, thereafter, council terms will be 4 years. make it clearer that council terms revert back to the 4
Yeah.
years.
Bob, go right ahead.
Madam City Attorney, out of curiosity, LA went through this because they also had very low voter. Did you look at their ballot? Because I'm sure the same question came up. How did, out of curiosity, did you look at how they did their?
Yeah, they did theirs. Their ballot didn't say, like our ballot question, it says extending the term 1 year and 8 months. Theirs actually says 5 years and 7 months. So they actually put it that way. But I thought it was for the ballot question, in essence, what we're doing is extending, but I wanted to make it clear that the charter redesignated the terms to 5 years and 8 months. It's just a legal nuance.
If you're scrambling around for words and would, listen to a writer instead of an attorney, because an attorney would keep it exactly as is, I understand that. But instead of the term of office, you can just use the term.
And you know what? It's funny. My secretary looked at this. So this isn't a question on the ballot. So we're not limited by words. So we can put as many words as we want.
Okay.
But is it easier to understand if we just say terms rather than terms of office? Because I added back in of office.
Though I cannot do it or accomplish it personally, and I confess that, I always think fewer words are better.
Okay. So the term. I mean, that's fine because actually she put in the terms. She reordered it a little bit. I was like, oh, I like that better. But I put back in of office. But I'm happy to put the terms.
And she's since been fired, hasn't she? Tell the truth.
No. She's too good of a proofer for me.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why in the actual ballot question, we did say once. This happens one time.
You remember that, Jess, now. Okay.
So
any questions
if there's anything,
at this point?
If that's it on this one, I'll hand it back over to the city clerk to talk to you about the ballot arguments. Are we good then?
Anybody have anything else for the city attorney? Okay, good. Back to the city clerk.
Hello. So talking now about the argument for and against, we have an election code 9282 that provides the city council and any member or members of the city council authorized by the body or individual voter who's eligible to vote on the measure or bona fide association of citizens, combination of voter and association. What does that all mean about writing an argument for and against the measure? And you do not exceed 300 words in length. And so what does this mean is council has to make a decision who will be responsible. If you remember, we did this with Measure B, who would be responsible getting together as a group and writing the measure in support of the measure since you're putting it on the ballot. And that will be for both measures, for the in lieu and also for the election measure. So at this time, the city attorney will be writing the impartial analysis. However, city council needs to pick the person that will be leading the team and moving forward.
Well, do we pick a person who's leading each team?
Among yourself.
Okay.
Yes, it has to be from council.
Oh.
And there's 2 separate ballot measures,
yes.
And actually there might be 3 and it's up to you whether you do anything on the BUSD one or not. That's you can decide that, but at least for the other 2, it's 2 separate arguments for those.
Being a big believer in, well, if you didn't want to do the job, you should have been at the meeting. I'd immediately.
No, you're not.
I would immediately nominate Miss Gable Luddy, but truly, I think she has a great, relationship with doing these kind of things. Certainly with the clerk's office and the city attorney's office and getting the. So anyway, we could find a nice ribbon or something to wrap around it, or can we not do that? Now I'm seeing heads shake.
I just want you to think about your timing's really quick on this stuff, yes. And she's not. You could start if the council decides, even though you haven't called the election yet. If you want to be Eager Beavers, you could start working on it whenever you chose, because your timing is pretty quick once you call the election. Do you have?
I believe it's on February 13th. And yeah, it has to be submitted. Once we come next week and we call the election, we're really on tight schedule with the county. We must submit the argument by the 13th. And we're looking them up right now. Yes, so the deadline to submit argument in favor and or against is the Tuesday, February 13th. The deadline to submit a rebuttal will be on February 23rd, which is 10 days after you submit the argument.
Well,
if somebody needs to submit a rebuttal.
I'm still comfortable with relying. Hey, I just took one ribbon cutting she was going to handle, so she can take this. But if somebody else is interested, please don't take offense and let us know, and you'll have the appointment, I imagine, seconds later.
So if I may, just to make it easier, there's standard form that we will provide you with. 300 words, so maybe you can get together and start thinking about what wording you're going to be putting in the two measures. Perhaps the third one, as the city attorney mentioned. And when Vice Mayor Ghiberletti comes back, she'll be back next Tuesday. At least you have a start, and perhaps can work in together to finalize your 300 words.
Can we list all 5 of us?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
just dump all the
Just do
work
that.
on Emily?
Yes,
I've got
you
a
can.
single focus here, I guess.
Once you do it, once you decide that you're doing that, the city resources can no longer support you because
Sure, of
you're
course.
advocating. And so it would be like when Measure B, I believe 4 of you signed and worked on it. You can invite a member of the public. I believe you have so
Yes.
many signature lines and you'll get all that information. But clearly it's, the council can decide that they all want to be part of it and, assign one of you to do the laboring or however you want to do it.
Yeah, the hard part is the group writing, but after that, it can move fairly quickly. I apologize. Go right ahead.
So if we're all working on it, then we don't have city resources? Because it was all, when the city clerk did her presentation those months ago about the reasons why we needed to, consolidate with the state, it was just all so clear. So we wouldn't have that? We couldn't?
Well, you can go back and pull the
Okay.
staff reports
can
and
quote
everything.
from
What
it
I mean
directly.
is, we can't write it for you.
Right.
And we can't, that's what I mean about using city resources. You're doing it
Here, make
outside of
5
this,
copies of this for me. real
not
quick.
as council members, which is why there's no Brown Act violation. It allows you, I mean, you're doing it as council member, but the law allows you to do this. But, it's not any of us ghostwriting it for you. We can, there's information that we'd be happy to give you that's available to the public, but we have to be careful because you are doing an advocacy piece.
We did not find it hard, as I recall, to, we didn't even make phone calls on City Hall
Right.
lines to one another when this was the topic or,
And you
or
met
a topic.
outside of City Hall.
Yeah, right. We met at, who was next? Who was it we missed one person's house? It was the chickens, that was it. So we could do that if the 4 of you are interested. Does that appeal to anyone? If so, do you want a vote on that? What would you like?
If you can give me the names, when we have to make sure that we include them in our, the action that's taken tonight by council.
Can you read them off the front plaques?
Oh,
I'm
if all 5 council members, I'm sure I could figure that one out, yes.
No, see, I spell mine wrong all the time.
If they're all in agreement, all 4 of you in agreement, there's going to be all 5
Is that all
of
right?
you.
Well, give me something a little more than a head shake. Bob's is a good head shake, but
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement for doing it. I'm just wondering which is the best way to do it, all together or just a couple of us? That's all. I don't know what the pros and cons of
and
that
that
are.
we can work out amongst ourselves and our own schedules.
Okay.
Because I think the thing those are like the internal mechanisms of how you do it, but the thing you're really deciding is that all 5 of you are going to sign them and submit them on behalf of the council.
And
that's what you're deciding to do.
I don't want to pretend I don't see, a value of to some extent of having all 5 names on the supporting side of this. So that they definitely keep that in mind so that you don't feel used and cheap later. You'll probably feel that way about something else. So the names would be the council members. Do you need a vote on it? Would you like? Okay.
I think we're okay, as long as you're all in agreement.
So our hope, well, I shouldn't say hope, our plan is to come back here next week with the resolutions and ordinance to call the elections.
Great.
And excuse me, but let's talk just for a moment about, somebody's out there watching or hears about this later, and I'm going to fight that. How do they get in line to be on the against argument and do all the work on that side?
We will have notices published for anyone who's interested. I mean, we'll all this information that we have today will be all noticed to the public.
Okay.
So, and it will be available on the website for any questions. We will be starting a whole link for our upcoming special election and icons to click for and against, and there's going to be a lot of information put on the website as well.
Maybe we could throw up a super short mayor's show that just fills in people. I'm looking at multiple fronts to let people know that's right. You're absolutely right. Well, I wanted to say that I'm looking for applicants we're looking for people interested in saying no. No? Okay.
Not
Nope.
necessary.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, could I?
Yes, sir, please.
You have made several comments tonight and previously that we would need communication effort and we'll need help on that. We've been doing work assuming you might take the action you've taken tonight. Given that, we would expect on the 6th to try and bring something back on hiring a communication firm.
Okay. All right. We had no public comment cards. And now's the time for brief council comments, including reporting on council committee assignments. Who would like to be first here this evening? Nobody would like to be first. Well, I'm comfortable with that. And now's the time for additional agenda items. Does anyone have additional agenda items to propose? Okay. Boy, it must be getting early. The speech is over. Now you're just going to go to the web and get the highlights. That's the last item I have on my agenda. So we're now going to adjourn this meeting in memory of Milton Chortkoff to Tuesday, February 6, 2018. We'll be right here in the council chamber at 275 East Olive Avenue for a regular meeting. We're adjourned. Good night, and thank you, everybody, for being here.